rights, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I forgot how that.
All right, roll call, please.
Alderman Hoffman.
Here.
Alderman Varela. Alderman Rucker.
Here.
Alderman Ross.
Here.
Alderman Morose. Here. Alderman Hoffman.
I'm here
I mean,
again.
I'm sorry. Alderman Osteen. Mayor Harmonson.
Here. All right, so we do not have Varela online either.
No, we do not.
Was she planning to, do you know?
No.
I thought she was gonna be here physically today.
Okay.
That was my,
Yeah, she was supposed to be here physically today.
All right, well, we have a quorum, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to the city administrator,
Until she comes.
Devin Lake.
It's okay.
good afternoon, Mayor and Board. We're gonna continue on where we left off on Tuesday. So I have, Maddie and I have implemented the premiums and merit and everything that was discussed on Tuesday for personnel. And I have updated that slide from the previous presentation. So the budget is going up $654,000 for new positions and $1.25 million in raises. And that is, we did budget for the clearly outstanding in their associated quartile. So we are on the safe side as far as budget for personnel. So does anybody have any questions about that? I also wanted to bring up real quick, there has been a board member that has requested that they resubmit or redo their votes. And I wanted to bring that to the board and see if that's something that you all would like to consider. And if you do, I'm gonna need to put a deadline on that so that I can prepare the draft budget for the first meeting in November. So I would like to know how the board would like to proceed with that.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit too. I'll just say that, anybody goes home and they reconsider, they look through their notes or whatever, certainly fine, but give the rest of the board the opportunity we talked about
Right.
too. So if anybody else would like to revote, so Alderman Ross, Alderman Ross.
Full disclosure, that person was me.
Yep.
It's on the general fund projects. That was it.
Yep.
And honestly, I moved up, the general thing is, and I reshuffled some stuff, but I moved up the 911 and the public safety assessment.
All right.
And so just everyone
No.
knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, I don't think anybody else has a problem with that, do they? And do, Alderman Rucker?
I don't, simply because it's a poll vote. It's
Yeah.
going to the budget. I'll just be very honest. If I disagree with the findings after his vote, which I don't, but if I did,
Yeah.
I can voice it when it comes to the
Exactly.
next draft of the budget. But I would
Yeah.
echo that, yeah, we need to put a deadline. And while I got it, while I got the microphone, I think one of the things that might help us not having that happen, and I know, well, I'll just speak on behalf of myself. If we could have stuff in advance, rather than here, it would have been nice. Used to getting our board packets 5 days, 6 days in advance. This is a pretty big thing we're dealing with here, and we have no advance notice. So I would have liked to have had this days ago so I could have reviewed it, and I might have helped some of that. So I was going to say that later, but I'll say it now.
Very good. Alderman Hoffman.
I just want to kind of echo, I applaud Devin for this new system. I think it's working pretty well. But I would agree that this thing will go faster if we get the budget, even if it's just a rough draft of the budget a week early, so that we can kind of work on it ourselves. I think it would be helpful for next year.
Very good. Well, this is the first year we're doing this way, so I think it's gone very well, but I think we're taking suggestions as we go. So,
Yep, absolutely.
what's a good deadline, do you think?
Would
For
5 o'clock tomorrow work?
anybody who wants to change their vote, and if we should receive nothing by then, votes will stand. Does anybody disagree with that? Very good. All right.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, moving along to the debt summary. I'm sure you are all aware we are doing well on debt. We made the final payment on the 2003 SRF water bonds on the 1st of this year. The 2007 SRF water bonds, we have 3 additional years to go. This coming year will be a $145,000 principal payment. And then our 2005 SRF sewer bonds will be paid off in 2025. So not a lot of debt, and it's getting lower and lower all the time. Any questions in regards to that? Okay. Component unit summary. This is pretty simple. The revenue equals the expenditures for each of the TIF accounts. It's totaled together. I didn't separate out each TIF. The draft budget that Gina left me specifically says that it has to be presented as one number, that it can't be broke out into individual TIFs. So that's how I presented it. But any questions on the component units? Okay. Yes.
So I'm
Alderman
not
Ross.
sure I'd have to sit here and look at this, what exactly component units are.
It's the TIFs.
Oh, the tips, okay,
Yep.
fine, good, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, this is the main discussion that I had planned for tonight was the fleet management. And I would like to get some direction on if that's something that the board would like to consider, and if they would like to consider it based on the proposal that was presented by Enterprise, which was replacing 29 vehicles this year. If they would like to back off on that and maybe jump in, ankle deep instead of waist deep, or if that's not something you guys want to entertain at all.
Well, I'll say before the board says, talks, just again, it only comes down to me, in case there's a vote, as you know, 6-6, but I'm very much in favor of this. Since the presentation by Enterprise, I had the opportunity to talk again to the other municipalities around here, and they feel as though it's worked well for them. Morale for their staff, the ability to have vehicles that are reliable, the maintenance schedule to know whether things do need rotating balance, if the tires need, or if the batteries need changed. They can do the maintenance not only on the managed fleet vehicles, but also the ones we have in existence. And rather than going all in, even if we did their proposal of 29 vehicles, see how it goes for a few years. But to me, it looks like something that would be very good for our city for many reasons. And I know there's some reservation in that. To me, it's a little different than somebody just personally renting a vehicle, leasing a vehicle. Our staff, they have jobs to do in the different departments, so they would rather not take the time to say, what do we do with this 10-year-old truck maybe is worth $20,000, and they take their time from doing what they're doing to go online to try to sell it. They have auctions looking for vehicles to buy, and we're basically putting our trust into somebody else to do this, and every couple, 3 years, get a new vehicle, and it sounds like a good program to me. I'll just say that, and certainly a board decision, but I'm certainly for it. Alderman Ross.
You want to go?
Yeah.
Go ahead, if that's all right.
Sure.
I was not here when they gave that presentation. I just got the pamphlet. But overall, in leasing something like what we're talking about, it seems to me of the number of vehicles that we have, and of course they're constantly getting maintained and whatever, and we talked about hiring a mechanic here on property, which means we have to provide a shop for them, which means money downstairs and whatever. I can really see where, well, if we own them and then we keep them for so long and then trade them in, sell them for whatever worth that they may be. I don't know how the leasing program goes of actual mileage or years that you lease for, because like I said, I haven't examined that thoroughly. But it just seems to me that it puts a lot of responsibility on an entity that is fine. We don't need to be dealing with it. And let the owners, the the entity to take care of our vehicles. I know they do that all over the world, but just the idea that our people don't have to be responsible, just like you mentioned, taking their time off or allocating more money for repairing them. Anyway, I'm on the outside, without getting really much in detail, I'm supporting it.
Very good. Alderman Ross.
So in general, I don't support it. I've been involved in them before. And if you have a highly decentralized fleet with a whole lot more cars than this, there may be value because trying to manage that can be challenging. We have a centralized fleet. There's a cost to this. But I would much rather invest in our community and our people than invest in this. There's a cost here. That's all there is to it. And sure, it'd be nice, and I don't know how many times, I should start marking this down, I've heard the word "it'd be nice to" since we started these conversations. We have a lot of nice tos that we all want to do, and wouldn't they be nice if we could all afford them? But what we don't know as we have this discussion is what the budget implications are and what we won't be able to afford if we go down this path. Whenever we look at people and say, we still don't have water or sewer to you, okay, but we can get nice new vehicles, or we can do this, or we can do that. Those are the choices that we have to make and are responsible for. And I'd much rather invest it in the community and the people. That's really all I have.
And I'll just say this, and you and I have talked about this, and we're not going to agree on it, which is fine. That's part of what we do up here. The presentation they made showed that at the very least, this would be a break even. They showed we would be saving somewhere in the neighborhoods, I think it was $160,000 over the course of the next few years. Now, if you believe the numbers, then great. But they were saying worst case scenario is this is at least a break even, so we're not taking money away from the community and putting it into the vehicles, if you believe their numbers. And they work nationwide, and like I said, they listed in that packet all the other municipalities around here that they use them and they like them and it works for them. So, Alderman Hoffman.
So I'll speak a little bit. I don't say it's exactly from Alderman Osteen, but he and I are pretty aligned on this. And we spoke with a lot of people at MML that were in this program, and it was a resounding negative for most people I talked to. I think
People like what? I'm sorry, didn't hear the last thing.
these were city administrators, officials from other cities that were outside of here. I don't doubt that maybe it does work for Lake Ozark, but there is a cost involved in this, and I don't believe their numbers because really what you're doing is you're getting into the used car business, and it's only a break even if they nail it and they sell the vehicles perfectly, and then maybe in a perfect world it probably is break even, but I don't expect it to be a perfect world. There is a cost involved. I'm not on board with it. I don't believe Alderman Osteen is either. So for me right now, this is a pass.
Okay. Alderman Rucker.
I wish Bob was here. I had a conversation with Bob yesterday. And I wasn't going to say what I think Bob's position is, but now that Alderman Hoffman has mentioned that, he gave me the indication he was on board. Matter of fact, he had talked to me about two different items, or actually, he called me on one item, and I asked him, I said, where are you at on this thing? I said, because I know you had some conversation. And basically, as I think nobody's surprised, I'm on board a lot, okay? His impression to me was he was on board. He thought Alderman Hoffman was on board, not fully, but to take a look at this thing from taking a piece of it and trying out a piece of it. So I'm very shocked, unfortunately, that Bob's not here. I don't think this should be dead yet because Phyllis is on board and hasn't had a chance to do a lot of deep reading. Unless Bob has changed his mind since he talked to me, or I totally misunderstood him yesterday, that he was on board to just see how we could figure out how we could take a piece of it. And generally, but the two of us kind of said, well, we're gonna have to probably get back with the gentleman that presented and say, how do we take a piece of it? I feel that if we take a piece of it, you know, the police might be a piece of it, but looking at the police, we're gonna see the least amount of savings. And the reason I say that is because our fleet in the police department is the newest. Where we're gonna see the most savings is where our fleet is the oldest, as we remove that from repair. But I was hoping that we could move it on to a different, not just because Bob's not here, but I think that we would just move it on to another night of discussion to really delve into it deeper. I don't know where you want to take it now. Celeste is not here. I want to move in. I want to move farther with it. I'm not ready to jump all the way in, though. I will say that I think I've wanted for a long time to take their philosophy and not let them do it, but let us do it. But now I see that maybe that might be difficult for us to do their philosophy, but I don't know how we want to proceed. I'm sorry.
Alderman Hoffman.
And just to clarify, yeah, what Bob told you is probably accurate. One of the things we did say is if we were going to do it, let's do a very small portion of it. Might get on board with that. I don't think turning the entire fleet over to them is the right decision. If there's a way that they can dummy it down to a very small footprint that looks fiscally responsible, that's different. Then I would be inclined to give it a whirl. But the way that it was presented that night, I'm not on board with yet. So I guess they'd have to sell it to me, and I think that's where Bob is too.
Alderman.
When is the deadline for us to sign up? Is there any such thing or up to us?
We don't have a deadline. It's just a matter for budget.
Budget.
Okay.
Just whenever we do it and how we would mature it into the budget.
Correct.
Also, I wanted to thinking, did they have a minimum amount of vehicles?
No.
It didn't make any difference. And of course, it depends on the cost again.
Well, and what we provided to them, we, as in Mike Welty before he left, he gave them all the information of all of our vehicles in round numbers, about 120 vehicles, and 59 is what they were saying that they would start with based on the information that was provided to them. So half of the fleet is what they had proposed, but no, we can go as few as we want and see how it goes. But it is a budgeted item, so if we were going to make a decision, we need to do it before we move forward with our budget.
Once you sign up, how long is the lease for?
It is,
Is that up to us? Surely
yeah.
not.
Well, and again, I wish you were here too, because he would be the one to answer those questions.
Okay,
But
I'm sorry.
we can either buy them or lease them, or we can buy them or finance them, or there's several ways that we can do that, and he's much.
Well, I mean, I totally agree with Richard in saying of giving money more for the community, obviously. But if this makes logical sense for us to do it and to start off on a slow amount or a minimum amount, then we can look at the numbers and go from there. But I think it's a good idea to try it.
Well, knowing that Alderman Hoffman, you have something else?
Just one last thing, just to be clear about the maintenance on the vehicle. They are not doing anything to improve the maintenance of our vehicles. The only thing they're doing is saying, hey, this thing is due for an oil change. This thing is due to get some new tires. That still falls upon us to go get all that done. That doesn't alleviate the need for our mechanic, I don't believe. It doesn't change that we have to take it down to performance to get things done. So they're not actually doing any of the work on the vehicle. So that was part of the presentation that he made, that that doesn't really jive for me, because all you're doing is basically setting up an alarm clock. So
It's not good.
Alderman Rucker.
At the end, yes, it is eliminating some maintenance, because when you look at our fleet, and they're going to, with this program, reduce the life of our fleet. The fact of how old vehicles are, the older vehicles are, the more maintenance they need. So it will reduce our maintenance. It will reduce the cost of that, or it potentially could reduce the fact of the need of the facility, because all we're doing is oil changes, and you can do that a lot less. So it will reduce that because your fleet is not older. So yes, it will have an impact on that.
if you maintain your vehicle over the life expectancy of that vehicle, it's not going to go up. You just don't have more maintenance because it's old. If you're taking care of it, it still works. I'm just saying, and you're right, the older a vehicle gets, it probably is going to have more problems. But they still aren't doing anything to solve that except flipping our vehicles sooner. And that's how they make their money. So they're going to be in the market to flip our vehicles as soon as possible because that's how they make their money. Well, that might be losing us money over the life expectancy of that vehicle. So again, I just don't think this is apples to apples. I don't think we should kill it, but I do think we should hold this off, leave it as an open thing, however you want to put it in there. And then let's circle back to this. Let's get some clarification. Let's find something that works for us. And if it just fiscally, for me, if it's just fiscally irresponsible, then I'm going to vote no.
Alderman Ross.
So just to clarify, one of Alderman Hoffman's comments, did you say that you spoke to people at MML that had experience with this, that didn't have as positive of outlook on it as
Yes.
some of the other folks around here?
The city administrator of Belton, we talked to Raytown, we talked to Lebanon, Bob and I talked to probably 10 different entities. I can't remember exactly which ones they all were.
That's fine.
But it was, I think that of the 8 or 9 we talked to, there were only 2 that liked it and the rest of them didn't. And it really to them was just they didn't feel like they were getting much for their money.
Okay.
Now that, I should clarify, some of those communities are really small and some of those communities are really big. They have drastically different size fleets. So that's where it really needs to work just for us or it doesn't make sense.
Well, I don't know that it makes sense to, obviously, you don't want to kill it. By the same token, we have budget meeting tomorrow, or Monday next week, Tuesday. Don't know if everybody's going to be here. So at this point in time, I don't know whether it makes sense to try to put another agenda item. If Alderman can't make it, we're going to be in the same situation we are now. And we need to move forward for the budget. So I would entertain suggestions if you do want to kill it, if you want to try to put it on Monday's agenda to discuss, hopefully, or Alderman Rucker.
I think we proceed, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but I think we need to proceed as the way we have been doing business, which means that we're not using the program, but I don't think we should take it off the agenda. I think we should give opportunity, hopefully, to have a full board to discuss it. And see there's a lot of things to talk about that we could do, okay? I could go on here and spend a lot of time to debate it back and forth. I learned some more things from that person, and I think there's some value in what we learned there. Just to take that time and move on and do it exactly the way we've been doing it, I'm 100% against that. But I think that we do owe it the opportunity to Celeste and Bob to speak up on this and see how. So I say we move forward.
Yep.
And then.
Everybody okay with that? We can move on, and we'll try to pick it up Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah,
sure.
when we have a full
For
board.
lack of a better term, can we just table this till later?
Yeah.
Well, no table, and this is
Yeah.
just our budget hearing, but if everybody's
We can
in agreement.
rediscuss.
Yeah. Alderman Ross, did you have something else?
I'm okay with that. I just would ask that if and it's everybody do it their own way, but please take a look at the savings. I asked the gentleman, it looked like 80% of the savings was in fuel efficiency. That a lot depends on some assumptions that are made on those costs. And so there's not a lot of money savings unless they can hit the market like Mr. Alderman Hoffman said. And that's not easy to do. If I'll be honest with you, if we would have sold all of our vehicles in 2020, around the end of 2020 to the middle of 2021, we would have made a pile of money, but we couldn't get another vehicle anyway. We waited 2 years to get a vehicle. So, and I realize that's a little bit of a unique situation, but it is not as easy to time the market as they say. And we've got a lot of conflicting views on it. So please just look into it and try to understand how it is that they've come up with their math. Because believe me, their math is jaded to their side. There is no way of that. So figure that factor in there. Now, it may not be jaded 100%, I get that, but it's jaded, okay? And so I would just ask that everyone, if they have time, to take a look at that.
And I will say this, on the flip side of that, if anybody knows anybody from Lake Ozark, Camdenton, if they know from the Camden County Police Department, Camden County, if you would know of anybody over there, ask them how it's working for them, because it may be jaded, but they've been very happy with their program as well. So if we can do it for the same thing for at break even or savings, then we're not taking money from the community. But with that, I'll just wait till we have a full board, and when we do, let's bring it up again. How's that?
Yes, that sounds great. Bob did tell me that he would be here at 3:30, so
Okay.
hopefully he will be
Do you,
here.
have you heard from Celeste at all?
I did look back in my email. She had a meeting in Sedalia today, so she was not going to be able to make it.
Right, Bob, I talked to Bob just a few minutes ago, and he said it depends on some things that happen at 3:30 as to whether or not he'll be here by 3:30. He may not make the meeting.
Well, and if Celeste is definitely not gonna make it, I would say even if Bob comes in, I would say let's not, let's
Try Monday,
to give
Tuesday.
Celeste the opportunity to be here. And also give Phyllis, and the other thing is maybe Phyllis, somebody can help you or help her to where she could be able to dial into that presentation and show her how to do that from our last meeting.
Yeah. What I would, hey, Alderman Moroz, what
Trying
I
to
would,
get her back on the presentation,
sorry.
sorry.
what I was going to suggest is if you go to Facebook and watch his presentation from that board meeting tonight, it was very informative.
Okay, and I got the pamphlet too, I'll definitely do
Yeah,
that.
but a lot of the questions the board asked him, he answered, so it'd be worth your 30 minutes to watch.
Thank you.
All right, so I will make this a discussion item on Monday.
Yeah.
So, moving along.
I don't know what I did.
So we're going to go over enterprise funds revenue projections, starting with water. My proposal is to do a 5% increase for fiscal year '25. I have the last 3 years of actual data and our projections for '24. I'll be honest with you, I'm a very conservative budgeter. I don't go overboard because that's the last place I want to be, is coming back to you and saying we didn't get enough money to pay for what we budgeted. So based on the projections from years previous, I think 5% is safe. For the sewer, I'm proposing a 14% increase, and the only reason that is, and again, I feel like that's conservative, but there will be another rate increase that goes into effect on February 1st. Ambulance fees, I'm proposing a 3% increase. There hasn't been a tremendous jump in those, so I'm conservative on that. And then on both airports, I'm proposing virtually no increase at all.
Alderman Ross.
Just clarification around what some of this means.
Mm-hmm.
So there's and I can't remember the exact number, but there's, part of the ordinance that we passed was for a sewer increase in, I don't remember, January, February.
Right.
Is this the same thing, or is that on top of that?
No, that's what I'm budgeting for.
That's the same thing?
Correct.
Okay.
Based
All
on
right.
those rates, this is the revenue your field will increase.
Yes.
Right. And I don't recall on water, did that ordinance have a 5% water at that time, or is this additional?
No, this is just my projection for, that would be additional usage,
Okay.
not
All right.
a rate increase. Because there was not a water rate increase, correct?
No, I don't recall that there was for February, no. I think
Okay.
it was just the
That was
one time
January.
last
Okay,
August or this, in the last
then yeah, I
couple
did not
months.
take into effect any additional increases. I'm just
Okay, so
looking
that
at.
is a new increase, that 5%
I am,
for the water.
I am projecting that there will be a 5% increase in revenue from water in '25.
Oh, it's a revenue
Not
projection.
Yeah,
not an increase in
that's where I
cost.
got
Revenue
confused.
projection.
Revenue projection.
My fault is down at the
Yes.
bottom, my
You're not-
apologies.
You're not doing anything with the rates that we approve.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, okay.
Sorry.
Yes, and for everybody at home, no, this is not an increase. This is anticipated money coming
Yeah.
into the cities.
fair
Revenue
enough.
projections.
We gotta
Okay.
remember, this is revenue, what we passed before was rates.
Right,
Those
Yes.
two big terminology.
yes.
Fair enough.
I got confused too, I was like, wait a second.
Okay, any questions on this information? Or do you have any suggestions on if you think I'm being too high or too low?
Any idea how that compares to last year?
Yeah, well, I didn't do the percentages for last year, but FY '23 in water was 2.1 million. Our projection for '24 is 2.2 million.
Okay.
Sewer has drastically increased because of the rate increase that went into effect in August. But FY '23 was 2.8 million, and our projection for '24 is 3.2 million. So,
So basically, in the two airports, you're planning on there's no increase in fuel usage, and there's no, because that's the big thing is where our revenue is, and there's no increase in hangar fees. I thought we had automatic increases in hangar fees on a regular basis.
Not automatic. No, we review it every 5 years. So it's not basically an automatic increase.
So those contracts that are signed, there's not an increase, a CPI increase or anything yearly after they sign it?
Correct. There is not, no. Not at this time, no.
I would highly suggest when contracts come due next time, we review them,
Put
because
that in
we need something there yearly.
Correct. Okay.
I'd like to tag onto that a second. So one of the things, and when Alderman Hoffman and I were out there visiting around the hangars, especially at Lee's and Fine, I think you told us that you had like a waiting list of like 12 people or something. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it
And
fluctuates.
so those hangars are all, this is news to me, those hangars are all under a 5-year contract for rental?
I mean, they're under a yearly contract that automatically rolls over, but we don't look at the price of the hangar rental until about every 5 years. Then we do a survey of local areas to see how we compare.
Okay. And so do we also have, do we have any waiting list at Grand Glades?
Oh, yeah, they're both about the same, yeah. They fluctuate in between 12 to 20.
Are we required by or do we have any requirements through FAA, excuse me, that we can only review those every 5 years?
No, we can review them anytime. We can do them yearly if we choose.
Well, I know that if I had rental property and I had a long waiting list, and I would probably not wait 5 years to raise my rates. I'd just say it that way.
Alderman Rucker.
Okay, all right, so I'm confused then. You said 5 years, so we don't have a 5-year, we have a 1-year contract that we have chosen by we have chosen to review them every 5 years.
Correct,
So they are a 1-year agreement.
correct.
I think it's a time to review them. I would suggest that staff review them. I would suggest that we look at them from the standpoint of, and asking council obviously to look at them. I think we need to put some kind of CPI in there, or CPI -1 or something. There needs to be a yearly possible change in that agreement. That's my suggestion. No. Anybody else don't feel that way, that's fine.
Just real
Alderman
quick,
Hoffman?
my gut tells me that we're undercharging for hangars.
Oh, sure.
So, 5 years seems, I would say every year to 2 years, those should be reviewed and, or just get them to the fiscal responsibility position of what we should be charging. I don't know, should we be the same as Camden? Should we be more? What's your thoughts on that?
In the past, we've always tried to be in the ballpark, the same, but my position on that has changed over the last couple of years just because, the old real estate logic, location.
Absolutely.
And the demand, I think we need to be above everybody else personally.
That's what I was thinking too,
Yeah.
so. Okay, that's all I had, thanks.
Alderman Rucker, do you have something else?
Yes, I was just going to ask Devin. Devin, when could you bring forth information back to the board on what to do with that? Could you do something with that within 30 days or 60
hangar?
days?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that we would like to not wait till next year. I mean, I realize you got a budget, well, you got your budget because you don't know.
Right.
But I think that we would like to move forward with
Sure.
something on that.
Alderman Ross.
To switch gears, if anybody wants to talk anymore on hangars, that's fine, but I was going to ask about ambulance. 3% ambulance, I mean, I can just tell you my healthcare costs are going up a heck of a lot more than 3%. Any thoughts you have on the impact of
The only
it?
thought I have on that is, it doesn't matter what we charge.
Okay.
Thank you. It matters. But if you, Medicare, Medicaid is, and I thought I heard that they were going to increase it a little bit, but they're only going to pay so much. and the rest gets contractually written off and goes into bad debt. So
Well,
I think the 3% is reasonable, because I think we've had more trips and more,
and that's fine. I realize that they're only going to pay so much, so it does, you can, triple it, but they're only going to pay so much anyway. So I guess what I would say is, and I really don't follow Medicare and Medicaid increases in allowances, but I figure it probably mirrors something like increases in Social Security benefits, and we should be at least increasing as much as those are happening.
we're not losing any Medicare, Medicaid dollars. Our rates are over and above that. So that the difference is written in.
So does it
is-
matter what our rates are then?
Yes, it does. I
Got to
mean,
be above Medicare.
yeah,
They gotta be above it.
you have to be above it, and your
Your other,
payers, your private payers or your private insurance
right?
will make up some, will increase some.
Okay.
But again, this is just revenue coming in. This is not what we're charging.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. And that's fine, but it's always a question around. That's how we change revenue projections if we change rates,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
anyway. All right, very good.
Well, we do not have a contract with Medicare and Medicaid, correct? I mean,
Correct.
We're not like the doctor's office that's got to write it off. So, I mean, we don't have to write it off.
On some Medicaid, we cannot go after. Medicare, we can. Medicaid,
Medicaid, we can't,
We-
okay.
we
But Medicare,
can't.
we can. Medicare is like the other health insurance. We could write
Correct.
it off, or we can go after the patient.
correct.
And historically, we write it off.
No, if they leave a balance and they don't have a supplemental insurance, no, we bill them. We don't automatically write it off. But before we get to that point, Medicare they have forced us to take an allowance. Then they pay, and if there's anything left after that, we forward that to the patient.
But private health care is different.
Yes.
Yeah, we can,
Here's a question I have is, if I remember correctly, the marijuana tax went to police and ambulance services. Is that correct?
Parks first.
Was it parks
Parks and
and ambulance? What was it?
there were some 3 different ones that went to, and I would.
I believe, Parks, police, and ambulance services.
Parks
Is that
and Public
correct?
Safety.
Okay, that's the best way to put it.
Has that already been, I mean, is any of that going to that?
We were supposed to talk about that on the agenda, I believe. Are we not?
It's further down in the
It
agenda.
is, okay. All right, I'm jumping ahead, okay.
But to my knowledge, all the marijuana taxes stayed in general fund, so it would go to parks, I'm assuming, not public safety. Well, no, it would go to police.
It
And,
could.
yeah, everything but ambulance as far as public safety is concerned.
It was my understanding when you guys put the tax on the ballot, that it was going toward ambulance and public safety. Ambulance was included in that.
Yeah, I was
That's the
thinking,
way I took it.
I'm going by memory, and we can look it up, but I think it was 3 things. I think it was parks, police, ambulance, services. I
I
could be
believe
wrong.
you might want to talk with Cole, but
Public safety, I think you're right.
my understanding that we can put all of it in one.
Okay.
We don't have to divide it.
Right,
by
right,
a
but,
third.
but it had to go into one of 3.
One of those
Yes, yes.
3. And all to one or 3 ways or how, yeah.
Correct,
Yeah, it
okay.
couldn't go to someplace else. So if it has, none of it has went to ambulance, we're okay
Correct,
legally.
correct, okay.
Designate it to anything, you designate it to you could designate it in 3 different places. I'm trying to find your ordinance, but it wasn't designated to one location.
No.
You can split it up between the 3 of them. I'll find you the ordinance.
Okay.
Let me find it for you. Here it is, right here. Says funding for construction, maintenance, repair of improvements of city parks, recreation system, with any of funding general fund needs, total local tax provisions in. Okay.
It helps to move. Okay. I appreciate it. I'm not that lazy. If I was that bad, I'd ask, but it helps to move once in a while.
We can go on if you want.
What's your sales tax? Go on to the next.
Okay.
Go on, I'll find that.
If we get to that portion, it is in the general fund
Yeah.
revenue.
Okay.
I found it on the website if you just want me to read it, or we can move on. Just what was released to the public. It says what's on the ballot, specifically the purpose of funding capital improvements and operation and maintenance around parks and recreation, capital improvement and operations of public safety services to include police, 911, and ambulance services.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, where'd I hear that?
There you go.
I should have done marijuana. That's how much I like it.
Okay.
All right, very good.
Any more questions on enterprise revenue projections? Okay. Moving on to reserve. So me, April, and Carrie have spent a lot of time discussing this over the last week, 2 weeks. The reserve ordinance that you guys have currently is very convoluted and confusing. It references something called a capital plan schedule,
Yes.
and none of us are able to find that.
I gave that to you
Correct, but it was back to 2019.
because they hadn't updated it. It was supposed to be kept updated.
Right. So after we talked, basically what you're doing for replacement of capital is done during the audit process for depreciation. So what we did was use the 3-year average for personnel and O&M out of the audit, the 3-year average of capital depreciation out of the audit, multiplied that times the percentage that's set out in the ordinance, which is 16% for water and sewer and 8% for the airports, to come up with a required or estimated reserve needed, and then a reserve balance that we have estimated for the end of the year. So reserves are well.
Alderman Rose?
So I appreciate the fact that you don't understand how we were doing it before, but I think how we were doing it before is much better alignment on how to set your reserves, because what it tends to do is make you look into the future, especially the next 5 years, and make sure there's no anomalies on any kind of running average on replacements that are scheduled, okay? And that was what the asset schedule, I can't remember the exact name of it, was to do. And one of the things that I've been concerned about, realize not all of you all weren't sitting in those chairs before, is that we weren't keeping that up. As we bought these new assets, we weren't talking about how long it was and when we were going to need to replace them. And one of the reasons that I have a lot of passion about this is because I remember sitting on this board early on and having so many discussions about whether we should replace airport fuel trucks. And then to tag onto that one got even more critical was when we needed a 911, Chief, help me out, $700,000 on some kind of radio system that nobody had really planned for well, and we didn't have the cash to do so. And these reserves and that schedule is what helps us understand whether or not these are trying to go through the reserves that are based on that schedule, plus any operational maintenance stuff, is what makes sure that it minimizes the likelihood of those kind of things happening. And so I realize you're new, and I know you're doing as best you can, probably doing more than you should, but and I appreciate the great job. But we have got to dig into that asset schedule, or we will find ourselves in a place like we were before, and I don't want to be part of that.
Alderman
I
Ross?
think Carrie can help.
Yeah, that schedule is overly burdensome, and obviously it's behind since 2019. When we spend over, what's the dollar, April, 3,000?
Assets, 2,000.
2,000, when we spend on a fixed asset over 2,000, we put that on a depreciation schedule that's in code. So we have the same data. If we put a radio system in that costs $100,000, we can run that any time and see if it's depreciated out, then yes, we know we're going to have to replace it. So we can monitor the depreciation concerns you have, but just in a different way that is already, it's like two jobs. Instead of doing two jobs, we're looking for ways to combine it into use what we have to analyze and find the information that you're looking for.
And if you want to call it depreciation, so be it. As I looked at how it was, ended up being utilized in, I don't get reports from Encode, okay? But we got asset schedules, all right? If it was
Yes.
duplicate work, surely there's a way not to do the work twice. I agree with that, okay?
Thank you.
But it's not necessarily about depreciation. You all have heard this before, I'm not convinced we can take care of what we have, all right? And so if we're not planning on the fact that this roof on this building in the next 3 years needs to have a $500,000 roof, then we need to be, all right? And in essence, what it looked at all of our assets and what generally we needed as an average across each individual year based on when things were being replaced and based on their age and if it's 30 years, if the roof's good for 30 years, it costs $500,000 and I'm trying to do the math, then we need to be putting $12,000 or $15,000 aside every year or whatever that math is, okay? And if we don't take some kind of approach like that, then we will end up in those same conversations. I mean, I think, Kevin, you were working on something very similar to that with the sewer department, okay? And I think my challenge, and I realize you're new to this, so please don't take this as, I'm not concerned about this. We need to take a deeper dive than this, is what I'm trying to say.
Alderman Rucker.
Well, I will just say, I have been trying for the last week to find the reserve ordinance, and I just haven't burdened staff with it, because I knew it was there, and I thought I had it in my file, and anyway, I haven't found it, and I don't need to know exactly where it is, and the only reason I wanted it is because when we got to this section, I was going to just kind of revisit and just see, I think I'm under the same mindset I was, and this ordinance needs some help. Okay, I'm not just saying it needs. I'm not disregarding what Alderman Ross is wanting to have in a reserve. Okay, but I'm saying this ordinance was in my opinion was difficult to follow, and so I think that we saw what we've seen that has just happened to the city is exactly why that ordinance needs to be changed. Fortunately, we have Carrie Bell, who's been involved with it a little bit, and we have April that has been involved with at least the financing portion of it, but not so much the administrating or that portion of it. And the passing of the torch is not an easy thing with a piece of ordinance that is that challenging. It should be a lot simpler. The main reason I wanted to look at it, to be very honest, is because, in my opinion, it was going to demand that we have some money. We'd have to find some money this year that we ain't got, okay? And it doesn't give us any leeway to say, okay, we don't have the reserve. We overspent the sewer. We knew that, and we don't have to get it all the way back to par this year. But the ordinance says we do, and that's wrong. The ordinance, the way I read the ordinance, it should give us, the board, an opportunity to put a plan in place that says, okay, we overspent the reserve, we had to, but now we have, the board has a certain amount of time to put in a plan that says, okay, we're going to replace that over the course of so many years, because that was a big thing when we set our rates, that I wanted to make sure that, and if you remember when those rates were established and brought to us, there was a couple of different ways. One way was to where we set the rates up high enough to where we could replace the sewer reserve in 2025. The second one was, which was what we took, was to replace the rates over a course of a number of years, or excuse me, the reserve, back to reserve over a course of a couple of years. So that's and if we're seeing that we're going to be able to take care of the reserves this year and get them back to what calculated by this staff, we definitely have some different figures of calculation. I'm not saying either one was right. I'm just saying they're different. And part of it, the reason I think they're different is the fact that the ordinance is challenging to follow. So I don't really throw a stone at anybody other than the fact that they're challenging.
Although I don't do the math, I didn't find the ordinance that, the equation that challenging, right? And I realized we could take this offline, whatever is best. But what I really remember is that this was it was a 5-year ordinance to try to build with a plan in it. But I did not, if I may not remember, but if it says in there from there on, you have to follow this math, I would agree, Kevin, that the process might need to be looked at, okay? But I will just say this, without that asset schedule, you're flying blind. You're just flat flying blind. Because that's how we got into the radio replacement. It was 15 years old and they don't make them no more and OEM and so forth. And we were, lack of better, and Gina even told me one time, I put this ordinance in because I just felt like they were just spending money and not paying a lot of attention, okay, to what was next year. It was just this year, we got money, let's spend it. And that's fine, but we gotta make sure we have enough money next year too, and the next year, and the next year. And if in fact there is some large purchase, especially if there's 3 or 4 throughout, that all fall in the same year by chance, that we're either gonna have to start buying parts off the internet or we're gonna have to borrow money to pay for them, we should know that these reserves are gonna cover that, and if they're not, then we need to look at it differently.
So the way I have it calculated, the reserves are sitting well. I don't
But do you
see,
know what replacements we need to make in 2026 and 2027?
we would have to look at the depreciation from the audit for each specific fixed asset.
Carrie?
We could review all the city's fixed assets, and if they're reaching full depreciation, then we know, and we shouldn't just look at City Hall, we should look at all the buildings. When's the last, and if it's been fully depreciated, when is, did this one have a roof? And I just think the same thing could be accomplished with the records that we currently have instead of recreating a whole separate record.
No problem with that, but I do believe, as I remember the equation in that, is that it looked out at your needs of your capital replacement in the next 3 to 5 years. And if we don't recognize what those are and we go, well, we've just been spending this much money the last 3 years on average, then guess what? Those things sneak up on you, and that's the point that I'm trying to make. And all I can tell you is I think we did a really good job. This I'll give Gina my credit for. In a very short period of time, they put that asset schedule together, okay? I don't think we did a very good job maintaining it, and I think that there's a lot of assets out there that we still don't even plan for, okay? We just hope, which I've always believed after somebody convinced me that hope's a terrible it's not an effective strategy. We just hope that nothing blows up, okay? That's, we've had times when that wasn't the case because we didn't follow something like what was put in place.
So what April and Carrie and I discussed is actually your depreciation schedule is more aggressive than what your reality is going to be for replacement. So the easiest way I can equate it is, my husband and I farm. So if we go and buy a tractor this year and we depreciate it over 7 years, that tractor is going to last us 15 or more years. So if you're scheduling for replacement at 7 years, you are more than covering what you're going to need to replace those fixed assets.
I would agree with that, but you know how many tractors you have. We don't know how many assets we have in that schedule.
We do.
How do we know
We
that?
absolutely do.
We have a depreciation, it's detailed, every fixed asset that the city has that would cost over $2,000 is listed.
And we can look at our reporting and try to find a report that's acceptable to
I'd be
prepare
glad
for
to
the
look
board.
at it, but then if we have that and all you're asking for is a different form to use in the equation, but I felt like that equation, I think it was a GFOA recommended equation for how you set your reserves, and I feel very comfortable with that equation. And if what I thought I heard originally was we don't understand the equation, so we decided to create our own equation, I have concerns with that until I understand what the differences are.
The math, I think we were all good with. It's just the documents that are in the ordinance that we could not locate. And even the one you provided didn't have any public works on it. It didn't have 20, 30, or 35 on it. So we did a deep dive and tried to find it, and we found, like what you said, the 2019 one with everything except for public works. But, we can look at our reporting from Encode and try to pull that information, or not try, I know we can, but just to try to make it look nice for the board, and then I think we're good with the math.
We're not going to solve what's the right or wrong revenue tonight.
Yeah.
But I would ask that we, somehow, whenever we aren't having one of these meetings, okay, that we find time for an hour or so, that I'd like to sit down and discuss this with you all. Because if we know every asset over $2,000, one of the things that I've tried to discuss, and Zach, you and Nathan have heard me talk about it, we ought to know every pump we've got, and we don't know, okay? And we ought to know how old every one of those pumps are. And from what I've been told, we don't know.
That level of detail is not in this. They're
Well,
bundled per year
And I realize that's challenging to recreate, okay? But we need to get there, because you're not going to know how to manage this set of assets unless you have some reasonable
That is
model.
supposed to be in their cardiograph,
No, it's not in the cardiograph.
it should be developed in a
Okay.
separate.
Yeah, but we do
It's
have the
not that
number of
simple.
pumps in each year in the year.
Pardon me?
We bundle the pumps, say we buy 120 pumps in one year, we do, provide that as a set capital asset, so we'll at least know the age of them, but I know they all have different years that they, depending on the horsepower, how long they last, so.
One of the challenges that we have, in just as a very high macro level, is that we fly way too blind, all right? We should know in general, and we don't have to know exactly every pump, but within 10% that we have X number of horsepower pumps and X number of Y horsepower pumps and so forth. And we should know what the average age of those are. And we should be modeling to where we every year should plan to replace X number, okay, based on all of the knowledge that we have, okay? And when I say that, that expands to police cars and everything else, okay? And if we don't know that, then we haven't got to where we need to be. And I'm not saying that you're going to get there yesterday, all right, or tomorrow, but we need to head that way. And I've asked for, Gina and I talked about it, she agreed, we should have a cost of ownership model for the sewer, especially the sewer department, because it's our big expense, all right? But you got to sit down and do it. I've done it before. It can help if somebody wants to, but as I have these conversations, no one seems to be interested in doing it. But if you want to get right, and you want to do it right, you got to get deeper into the information. I'll shut up. Got nothing more.
I just think that I'm going through it right now with the sewer board, with sewer, our sewer between us and Lake Ozark. And we started with zero and we're moving forward. And it's a smaller operation and what way we get to the end results, I don't care. That's not my job. I just know the end result is what we need to get to. And the end result is the fact that in 10 years from now, the people that are all sitting up here and out there, and a large percentage of them were not here tonight, need to know exactly how this number is derived. And feel comfortable with it, and know that that's, that we're okay, and that yeah, we've got that, we've got enough money there to take care of all the needs that the water and the sewer and et cetera, and the vehicles and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where we need to be. And if you're feeling that the system you're providing and the information you're providing and this is gonna get us there or keep us there, okay, I think that I guess we just need to be able to see how some of that works, because I didn't feel like we were there. I don't feel like we've been there before. And if all of a sudden we've got there, then I need to figure out how we just got there. So I think there needs, I guess to move forward, I think this is what you've provided, this is what your opinions and everything are, and that's great. I just challenge you to be able to provide us with some information and documentation that what we think that reserve should be doing now and moving forward, it does.
I think that.
And maybe we're not on the same page, and that could be nothing wrong with that. We just all have to get on the same page.
So I think April, Carey, and I can work together and present you guys with what that schedule is and show, all of our fixed assets and
Yeah.
You'll be able to see that they're all documented and kept track of, and it is an important part of the audit. All of those fixed assets are huge to the audit, so we will provide that information and dive deeper into this at a later
That's nothing
meeting.
you're gonna do tomorrow.
Right.
I understand. This is, you know, something
Correct.
we're gonna have to do down the road and be able to make sure we're all on the same page.
Sure, absolutely. Okay. Moving forward, so we have a couple of costs that have gone up.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Well, I'm sorry. I
No, go ahead.
apologize. I don't see any reserve fund for general.
That's going to be later. That's
Okay.
actually going to be
Okay, I'm sorry.
either later tonight or Monday.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yep, we're
I'm
doing
sorry.
enterprise only.
Excuse me.
So, across the board, and this is for enterprise and general fund, property and liability insurance has increased significantly, and I'm going to let April speak to that. She's done the legwork on that portion of it.
So I reached out to NPR. I mean, I know, just like everyone else, ever since COVID, you know, our property values have went up, so they're, you know, if they do have a loss, the restoration value, or, you know, the restoration cost for NPR has increased as well. So, and then naturally, you know, as the liability portion is tied to our payroll, so as our payroll increases, the liability portion increases. So I did an average and came up with my numbers, and then when I reached out to NPR for the increases that they were anticipating, based on our loss ratios and our property values going up and our payroll liability going up, and some of the losses that we're currently dealing with, some claims that we have, a sewer liability claim that's still existing that NPR is still, you know, defending for the city. So their estimated increase lined up with mine, so I feel confident in these numbers. It's just, it is a little bit of an increase from what we've been seeing in years past, but these last 3 years, it's been pretty steady. And so I feel very confident in those numbers based on my estimations and based on what NPR provided to the city.
Are these yearly numbers, even though we will only see 6 months of it in the budget?
Okay, what? I'm sorry.
Okay, are these, for example, you're saying the water is going to go from 40,000 up to 57,000, right? Okay. My question is that 57,000 a yearly premium?
Yes, we just
Okay,
pay once a
but
year.
we will only see half of that in this budget, because isn't this policy July to July?
Yes, yes.
Correct.
So we will only see, we will not see the $17,000 increased in water under insurance rate. We will only see about $8,000 increase in budget 2025 compared to 24. Because you're not paying a full year in 25, you're only paying half a year.
You only pay it once a year.
Right, but it's only, but half of the year, okay, so for 2025, just take the water. For 2025, you should be budgeting half of 57, which is about 28,000, and then half of 40. Put those two together is what you should be budgeting for 2025.
I just gave her actually what the expense
Yeah,
was
but
going to be.
that's what you shouldn't be budgeting, though.
But that's the payment that will be made in July. The $57,000 will be paid in July. We paid this July, correct? For this up into June 30 of '25, and then on July 1st, we will pay.
Or we pay by the year.
We
Correct.
pay annually.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. I thought it was monthly.
No.
Okay.
You're right on the term, but yeah, we just pay annually, so.
Okay. My mistake, excuse me.
Can I, am I butting in, or were you still going?
No, I'm-
Okay. I was actually talking to people. But, two things real quick. One, I don't understand this July thing. Why are we not doing it from the first of the year to the first of the year?
We have no choice.
That's their fiscal year, and that's how their terms run. They can't line it up with,
NPR? Okay, that's odd. The organization that Bob brought to you, Devin, that was going to look into our insurance, all that, is there
I have sent him everything that he requested, and Maddie did, and we haven't heard anything
or
back.
anything? Okay, so Bob's taking the lead on that. I think this highlights the need to look deeper into our insurance, see if we're getting the right coverage. Are we overspending? Are we using the right people? Because those are pretty drastic increases right there. And I have a feeling that, I don't know, I haven't been around long enough, but I don't think there's been a deep dive into our insurance in quite some time from what I've heard. So I just hope that Bob can take the lead on that and maybe find some better solutions. And if not, if this is the best there is, so be it.
Alderman Ross.
Just one quick thing along that line. I don't know how critical it is for water, sewer, ambulance, and the property and liability insurance to be January 1st to December 31st, but I still say that once and I realize they're not here, but the healthcare needs to be January 1st to December 31st. And if they don't offer, which I don't think we buy from NPR anyway, but if a company doesn't offer it that way, then I'm not interested in doing business with them. So I'll leave it at that.
I believe both of our carriers are the self-insured pools, that they're municipal self-insured programs. And they're programs we've been involved with for quite some time. And unfortunately, I tend to agree with Alderman Ross, but they established I can go back when I was in the business, okay? They established that this is the time, and the reason they do that is because it's easier for them to establish the rate increases and changes. And some cities are on January to January, and some cities are on September. They're across the board, and that's why they have established that. So I think we're going to see that that's where they are. And if we don't want to abide by those rules, then we're going to have to play another game. But I would also say that we did do a deep dive into this a number of years back. I'm not opposed to doing it, but historically they've been cheaper because they are a self-insured pool program set up through somewhere through the state. I'm not sure all the nitty-gritty, for us to do a deep dive in that, also just understand it'll probably cost us about $20,000-$30,000 because we'll have to hire somebody to
No, that was why Bob was so interested in bringing these guys in. And again, he's been taking the lead on that. I've just been there for kind of his support, but they're doing it themselves. There's no cost to us on this.
So are they a broker?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So they have multiple companies that they
work
they
with
represent?
NPR. Yes. So there was, we've had several meetings with them, but Devin has said she's gotten the information to them. So has Maddie. Again, Bob's been taking the lead on this. I'm not sure where it stands. Maybe they're just reviewing things now.
Well, we
I
have it
don't
until
know.
July. I mean,
Sure.
we budget for this, which is the appropriate thing to do, and they come back with something that looks good, and we decide to go ahead and
Yeah.
officially put it out for bid, and we have a number of months before we have to.
Yeah.
But you've
So-
got to come up with a number, which you've done.
Just to be honest, it seems like Bob's kind of on top of it, and so are Devin and April and
Maddie.
Maddie. Sorry. So I hope if they're going to do it for free, let's let them take a shot at it and see what they find.
Yeah. We provided them with a
bunch.
lot of
Of
information,
information.
so I'm sure it's going to take them a while to sort through and
Yeah,
get it.
and that may be where it's at. I don't know. Like I said, Bob's been taking the lead. I'm sure he can speak to it if anybody wants to talk to him about it.
Alderman Ross.
So I'll talk to Bob further about it. I guess I would just say that in a perfect world, if you're going to go out to something like this with a broker, you would put a request for qualifications, and then you would review whoever responds, and then you would choose one or two, okay? My only concern, I'm glad Bob's taking the lead, and I realize path of least resistance is that there's only one broker looking at it. And so I'll talk with Bob about that. But the main reason is the question, are we getting our health care through NPR? Okay.
Yeah. Health,
The
property.
whole world, Social Security and everybody else works on a January 1st to December 31st healthcare year. How it is that NPR can't do that, I have no idea. And so that's the one, when I said I wasn't interested in doing business with them, product and liability, very possibly, but I am not on healthcare if that's the way they are. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I don't know if that question's ever been asked on the health side. Do you
He
know,
asked
Carrie?
for it last time, and we were told it couldn't be done.
Okay.
What these gentlemen had said to us was, we work with NPR all the time. There's probably places where they're not the best thing for you and where you know we can save you money. And there might be better ways to do it. It also might show you where you've got too much coverage or you don't have enough coverage, gaps in your coverage. So again, Bob did a lot of due diligence on this. He went to Devin. Let's just hope they come back with something and we can save some money and get better coverage. And if not, then, it is what it is. And I guess it's July to July forever.
So the other cost that's increased, and I'm sure you guys are aware, there was a postage increase twice in 2024. So those costs have gone up across the board. So I wanted to point out those two things. I also wanted to touch on the committed projects that will be automatically carried over into FY25. So the Gulfview to Nichols Water Loop, the bids are opening for that a week from today. The Sands Lift Station Control Panel replacements, I believe, Zach, you said that we're waiting on parts, correct?
Fall construction.
Okay. The Lacey Fine runway project, that's been committed, the Goldie Pearl sidewalk, the SS4A grant, and the Highway 42 sidewalk. So those were not on your ranking sheets for capital because we've already committed those funds, but I wanted to make you aware of those. I'll let Zach take over from here.
Thank you, Mayor, Board of Aldermen. We'd like to construct a storage building out back next year. This would be a 30 by 60 carport style, a little different beefed up carport, still better trusses on it. And then along with that, 2 container units. So to get some of the stuff we have inside outside, give us more room in the buildings. The building ain't getting no bigger, but we are. Hopefully this will help us move all of the stuff outside that doesn't need to be kept in. Like we were just kind of spitballing, making one of the containers for panels, it'll be mouse proof so the mice won't be able to get in there. Pumps can be stored outside. They'll have rain protection. The truck can pull through this carport, grab the pumps they need and roll out. And it'll pretty much clear up that back bay for sewer. Assuming we go with the bathroom in the street shop, we'll need to clear out some room for that as well. And that's kind of the same concept, get some of the water stuff out of there and free up that space. But it'd be a split between sewer and water for a 30 by 60 carport with side walls and a concrete floor. Second item is a natural gas heater for the main campus at 5757 Chapel. These are infrared tube heaters, so 4 tubes would heat the main and 2 tubes would heat the secondary bay off of natural gas. So it'd be getting away from the used oil burners. Yep, cool.
Sorry, go ahead.
Are there any questions on that?
Do we,
Yes, sir.
a couple of things. One, do we have natural gas in that area to tap into?
We do. We have it at the street shop, and there's, they extended the main this year to bring it to the main building.
Okay, so I'm not sure I understand you have your shop's in your vernacular.
Right.
But what is street shop? Is that the one where the offices are or across the street?
The other one, the
Okay.
transportation building.
So there's no heat in there now, right?
There is, we blew the heat exchanger on the oil burner. So there is no heat, but it's scheduled. It should be, the new unit should be here delivered at the end of the week or the beginning of next week to be installed.
Or the building that has the offices?
No, for the transportation building, the one across the street with no bathroom in it.
Okay, so why do we, I'm sure there's a good
We
reason,
have
but I'm
oil.
trying to understand why we need another one. Is that what I'm hearing?
So we have oil burners in the office bay, that building, the main building.
Okay.
Those oil burners are inconsistent. We did a startup for them. They worked one day, went out. Did another startup on them. They worked one day, they went out. Had the inmates fix them today to get them running again because the guy used to be a mechanic.
Okay, so make sure I'm too many buildings. $34,500 is for the main Public Works building where we have offices.
Yes.
Okay, so what we purchased for this year's budget in 2024 is a natural gas for the street building?
Yes.
Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
So they'll both be natural gas.
Got it.
Explain that oil burner, it's interesting.
We take used oil from the community, store it. We used to run burners on both sides. The consistency of the oil isn't good. The maintenance on them is rough, but it does heat it. And I mean, it's not efficient, very efficient. So there's
Very
like
old.
CO2 and
Oh, it's
rolling coal and, yeah.
Nasty.
Oil from cars?
Yeah.
Yes, used oil.
And
from
that's why I wanted to explain it. When I toured it here months ago, I'm like, that's what we use?
Yeah.
And
It's a very efficient, dollar-wise
Yeah.
process, if you are the one who controls the oil. I've used it and other operations here. It's great if all your oil that your people take from your vehicles goes to there and goes to there, okay? I mean, it is a little bit dirty, I'm not saying, but when you start allowing other oil to be coming into the system, that's when it becomes problems.
Yeah.
So I think it is time to move. I'm surprised it's still lasting as long as it's lasted, because those
been a while.
units are, I know I was on the environmental board, I can't remember the exact name, but years and years and years
District
ago,
T.
when we approved the funding for the city to buy that.
Well, and that's why I wanted to explain it, because this is needed.
It needs to be
Yeah.
replaced.
Okay, I should have said this before he started, but when I put small capital requests, the projects that you ranked were of value of 50,000 or more. Small capital requests are anywhere from 10 to 50. So I just wanted to give you guys an idea of what we're considering a small capital request versus a rankable large capital request. Okay.
Big changes also came in training and conferences. For the water department, they hired 2 individuals that don't have their CDL. We projected 3. Could you grab that bottom sheet for me? So make sure I'm not telling no lies. Yeah, so we budgeted for 2 CDLs, sorry, and 3 water licenses. The CDLs were the big pusher on that, which beefed up that. And then we'd also like to go to the World of Concrete convention as well. Which one? Oh, uniforms. Of course, uniforms grow as well. The uniform, there's room for improvement probably with that as the price continues to increase. We're going to add new individuals, which would increase the price, 11.5 to 14. We've been talking about other opportunities there. It just keeps getting out of hand, I'd say. Small tools went from 7.4 to 12.7 with the idea that we're going to get a new truck. We're going to need tools to outfit that truck, and we're going to have 2 more individuals too. It will, after the truck is done and outfitted, probably will stabilize back around that 7,000 mark. That was just an initial bump increase to get that truck outfitted. Memberships, the only difference the membership went up was the Missouri Rural Water membership increase, and so the 1,400 didn't cover it anymore. We had to move it into to 1,600. Mobile devices and services. This line item covers the cell phones for the department. Oh, skipped a line. Sorry about that. I'll come back to that. And then also the high tide upgrades. They're looking to expand the high tides on the water side as well to 8 locations. And this is the cell plan. The 3,864 would be the cell plans to cover that. Professional services. This line item is for the $60,000 leak study on the east side and a $40,000 water rate study, which we presented as the sewer and water rate during the initial capital purchases. Similar to what we did in Bluff last year, we put a mixer in that tower. We'd like to put a mixer in the Swiss tower as well, just to keep that with the seasonal changes that we have. We have periods of heavy usage and periods of low usage through the wintertime. We just want to keep that bowl moving and keep the water quality the best we can.
Inside the tank?
Inside, yes. We'd like to replace the Ford F-250. It's number 5549. Last year it was number 56. This was the second 250 that we brought to the board last year. We selected the 1 ton over this 250. It has, little sheet on top, 131,000 miles, and it's a 2013. This was the one that has that wobble walking motion when it's driving that we brought last year. We'd like to move it to a 350. We're finding the 250s don't really have the durability that the 1 tons do, especially when they're hauling the chlorine for the wells. And we just think that going with the 1 tons is better long-run longevity for the vehicle. There's the high tides I mentioned. This will replace all the radio side of SCADA. So a high tide at Swiss Well 1, Swiss Well 3, Columbia Well 1, Columbia Well 2, Columbia Tower, Bluff Well, Passover Well, and the Cobblestone pressure sustaining valve.
Zach, the truck with the wobble?
Yes.
Do we know why it wobbles?
We don't. And so that was one of those, remember we brought 2 last year and we only picked the 1 and we had the front end rebuild. I think it's just an issue with the weight that's in that 250 because it has, the service body loaded down with the tools. I just think, I don't know if it wasn't, I hate to say it's not designed for that, but maybe it's been beat down so much over its life that there's just something loose because we had the front end rebuilt on it. We've tried to mess with it and I don't know. They can't take it to a mechanic shop. They can't figure, there's nothing wrong with it. Well, it doesn't drive right, but they can't find anything to replace.
Yeah, it just might be the wrong vehicle for all that equipment on there. Who knows? But, okay, that's it. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Alderman Ross.
So I guess I'm confused, and maybe it was just a mistake or something, and that's fine. But how come this wasn't on here?
Those are new purchases only. These are replacements.
So this is all replacement.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we will be seeing some additional vehicles and equipment throughout the budgets, so sewer and trans as well.
Zach, real quick, I would like to point out, we kind of fought to only replace one of those last year, and I'm glad we did because we would have ended up buying a 250, and now it seems like maybe we would have bought the wrong vehicle.
That's a good point,
A
yeah.
good reason to extend the life of these vehicles as far as we can. So good catch, and thanks.
Sewer fund, you're up, I'm sitting down. Along those same lines, training and conferences, there is some increases because we are adding individuals. What do we got? World of Concrete as a big hitter there, just because it's sending 2 individuals with Nathan and Chris going, and then of course it would pay a fraction of mine. CDL, we did 4 CDLs. The department is younger in CDLs, plus with the addition of 2 now and needing to hire 1 and then going with 2 more next year. Thought there's a lot of possibilities that we may need that CDL money. Sending individuals back to the wet show again this year as well. Would take that from 23,000 to 31,000. They are ranked in order of priority, similar to water. So if cuts need to be made, they could be made from the bottom up. 2 newer sewer techs, same thing, same instances with the uniforms going up. We have seen some slight increases, but we are additionally adding new individuals as well, taking that from 20,000 to 24,000 to cover those new individuals.
Hey, Zach, why are we renting uniforms? Can you?
Yeah, so we looked at it, and I think the mentality is knowing what it costs and knowing that we could do it cheaper, we could give the individuals a stipend and save a lot of money. Even if we said, okay, well, we know we have, pants and boots are on you, here's the money to do that, we'll buy the shirts and the hats. Because, if you, just for rough math, if we're spending $24,000 in the sewer department and we give everybody $1,000 a year, we just cut that budget in half, and I think everybody would be happy. It's just, it is nice having the uniforms with the insurance. If something happens, it gets replaced, but it is expensive. And it's hard to maintain, I would say, from tracking purposes. It is difficult, challenging.
And the laundry service they provide
Oh,
is
right.
included in that.
Oh, okay.
And they do provide a laundry service, which some use, but not all. And so, yeah, but I think there are some cost savings if next year we go into a different mindset or mentality of it.
Well, the other thing I would warn, that if we go down that road, we be extremely cautious. I ran a garbage company for a while. We had a service like this for one main reason. We knew where the dirty uniforms were going. We didn't have to worry about later on finding out that some of the garbage, and in this situation, some of the sewage or something onto the garbage went home and was washed in the guy's home unit and created some problems. And then, I mean, it can be a real vicious situation. So I realize with some of the other uniforms, my fire service signs, we bought the uniforms, we made the employees wash them. But that was a little bit different back then. But I would just challenge with the sewer. So that's part of the justification I can see for it.
Repair systems, we think, we are projected to go over this year on the 1.6, but that was with regaining our inventory to levels where it needs to be. We would think the 1.6 is a good number. It is at 1.8, assuming that the state park, or when the state park is obtained, we would like to take $200,000 to put inventory on site. Just because of the drive time, you go out on a call, you see the situation, you brought the wrong stuff, now you're driving back to get there to fix it again, where if we keep that container on site, we can have pumps, fittings, pipe, electrical equipment, so hopefully everything they need would be there, and save us that drive time back when you forget something. And that money could be, obviously it'll be earmarked or can be set aside, and if the state park delays or nothing goes through with it next year, it won't be spent. Rental and lease equipment, there was a big incline in this with the understanding that this equipment is going to be used for Rockaway and sands only. So this would be a mini frac tank and a bypass pump for the Rockaway relining, assuming we get approval of that. And then this would be a 4x6 pump to do the sands when the sands is down for the new panel. So we'd have to bypass that site as well. We prefer to have a little bigger one on hand when we do that. Rockaway will be down for 10 days. When they do the panel, we are going to use the transfer pump that we purchased earlier this year, so we'll have a good handle on that. There is money in the budget just in case we want to have an additional pump on standby whenever the relining happens. But we'll have a better handle on how that goes after the panel is installed. That's what that rental equipment is, just for those installs.
I'm just curious, we're renting that equipment. Is it not something we could purchase that we would be using again down the road? And we're paying a lot for rental right there. Is that just such specific gear that it needs to be rented and not purchased, or?
Well, or follow it up, or could we buy it with the intent that,
Using
we
it
need it
somewhere
just
else?
next year?
Yeah.
And then sell it in '26?
I would assume that these, if we compare them to the transfer pump, or the pump that we have, knowing what these are, I mean, these are $100,000 pump and trailer setups. And that frac tank, what do you think that frac tank can go for? 50, 60? Okay, yeah. I mean, it's probably $200,000 worth of equipment if we were to purchase it.
And there's nothing we would use it for down the road, or?
No, we talk about that frac tank like it would be nice to have for instances like this. And I think that maybe that's where the cost savings is, because the pumps are so expensive, renting those, but maybe looking into purchasing a frac tank.
Yeah, because it's really just an emergency thing. I mean, you might go years without ever having to use it. So I don't know if you just want to, I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's kind of, if you guys want to buy one, we'll buy one. If you
Well,
don't, we'll rent it. I mean,
Well, that's why I'm trying to pick your brains about,
Yeah,
because
The last time we went was we rented that 4x6 for the sands. Was the last time we used one.
So you've already kind of researched this in your brain and think the best way is to rent it rather than buy it and then try to resell it? Or buy it and keep it?
I think for now, we should probably rent one.
Try it out.
And try it out, make sure it's going to work for our system. Because we might find that it's a pain and it's just not going to work. But I would just recommend renting it the first time, and then maybe if it works, we come back next year and say we think it'd be a good thing to have on standby.
works for me.
Mobile devices and services falls along the same lines. It's just elevated a bit. So because they have more people in their department, they need more cell phones. They also have more high tides in service, along with the ones we are hoping to purchase, which just brings that number from 18 to 61. These are the reoccurring costs associated with those high tides. Not all of those would be associated in year one. That's just kind of, I mean, that'd be worst case scenario. We received an invoice on December 29th or 20th, you know.
Because you get the first year
Free.
with the high tides for free. So the first year of the install, I think it's from install. Yeah, the first year it's installed, you don't pay for the cell service. It reoccurs the second year.
Yeah, that's just budgeting, assuming we're going to see all those invoices at the end of the year.
I think they want to take a break.
Yes, I was going to say, if you're done with this one particular slide, we've been requested by our city clerk, we take a break now. So if you don't mind, it's 4:35. Can we start again at 4:45? Is that good? Sure. All right. We're going to take a break to 4:45. he's here. Are we back on? All right, then call this meeting back to order, please.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Two small items, Zebra sewer connection. There is a house located at the corner of Zebra behind Deerberg's. Yeah. It'd be putting in a simplex station, pumping it up to the lift right there on a gantry crane. So the way the pumps are, it's kind of hard. It's challenging to maneuver them sometimes. So the little four-wheeled crane where we can just chain hoist them up and push them around the shop, push them into trucks. It's going to be a lot better. We do use the mini skid steer for it and the cranes on the trucks. Sometimes it just seems like there's more effort involved than it would be to just kind of hoist them up and then move them out. There's also some potential to use this at some of the lift station sites if need be.
Hey, Mr. Bean, could you come up here? Mine froze up. Just keep going, we'll figure out.
So basically, that crane is just, it's a manual crane rather than, and it's made for that, rather than use the skid steer to get a little bit, yeah, a lot safer.
Yeah.
Keeping a work comp injury in control.
And then we can move them around the shop as need be, and
That'll pay itself back in work comp.
I'll get weaker though, so. Similar to this year, we had that $400,000 for panel replacements improvements. We moved that down to $250, along the same concept of identifying failing panels and having a allocated space of money to replace those with. Here's a replacement service truck, truck number 6727. I can't remember the old number on it, but it is the oldest service truck that we have in the sewer fleet. It's sitting at 98,359 miles, and it's a 2012. I'd like to see that one replaced similar to what we're doing this year with the service truck. Well, maybe we should double this one, but we sent a pump to JCI. They told us it was irreparable for the sands. It would cost more money to repair it than it was worth putting into it, so we'd like to budget for a new pump to get us back to, to get us to 4.
Right.
Assuming that we had an issue with sand, but assuming that one's decent.
Sorry. So this service truck, 98,000 miles, it's 10 years old. How's it running?
I think it's on par with the trucks for that age. The issue we run into is it's a 350 with a crane, hauls pumps, long idle hours. So, I mean, the mileage, yeah, it doesn't have a lot of miles on it per se for a 12-year-old vehicle. You know, you would think to have 120 or 130 at 10,000 miles a year. But when you're driving 7-8 miles around the city a day, but that thing is running all day because I go to a station and I'm using the crane, so the truck's got to be running the whole time, and we're there for a couple hours, or we're using the inverter to run an electrical tool or charge batteries while the truck is sitting there idling. The trucks just are run hard and run long. You know, the mileage doesn't tell the whole story on the vehicle.
Sure.
So I think that's what, it's kind of one of those things. Yeah, I mean, it's better to replace it now in my mind instead of maybe squeaking a year or two out of it where now it's just a maintenance nightmare and maybe it's down and the guys are, looking for a truck or trying to borrow a truck from one of the other departments.
And this is just kind of alludes to why I would like to have that inside mechanic who could just back
Right, I'm
you
not a
up.
mechanic,
Right,
yeah.
you're not a mechanic, and could say, hey, we really can get 2 years out of this, but it's not worth it, or but because 98,000 miles just doesn't sound like a lot of miles on that vehicle to me. But I understand it gets run hard, so that's it. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
So I'm just going to start with sewer at the beginning. First of all, appreciate the fact that you want an inventory out there. I don't know, I have to figure out a place to put it, but maybe you can put it at the airport, so it's not a big deal. And I do think that makes sense. But do we have any concept of what the cost will be to bring that system to a level where you wouldn't call it a dinosaur and you'd be reasonably happy with it? I'm not saying brand new, okay? just, for lack of a better term, in general condition of what our sewer system is, or with the places that we feel we're reasonably comfortable with? Do you have any concept of what that cost would be?
Do you remember that number, Drew? The engineer estimate to do all the replacements?
Oh, did somebody do some assessment?
We had Crable looked at it.
If you give me a few minutes, I might
No
be able to find
problem.
it.
Yeah,
online.
I got more
Yeah.
questions, so sure, or we can get to it later.
I did talk to Cole today, though, and so the only thing that we have in with the state is basically a brief letter of intent that the city
Good.
intends to do these things. We're under no obligation, as far as what I know from Cole, to do anything yet.
Good. That was a question that I had in my mind. I didn't remember us approving any kind of contract, so that's probably why. Let's see, where was the other? Can you refresh me the Zebra sewer connection? Where did you say this is? That's, I'm very
It's
sorry.
hard because no one really, yeah, if you just keep going down Zebra,
Uh-huh.
and you know where it bends up left, and then
Uh-huh.
Tony Cicerelli's place is right there. It's that trailer that sits back there on that corner. That's the house.
The trailer that sits down below the road,
Past the lift station
it's still,
right there.
it's still on a septic? Is that
Yeah.
what I think I'm hearing? Okay. Just was trying to figure out where there was a
Right, and
house
it's-
on a corner
Yeah,
that wasn't on the system.
and the reason it's only the 30K, that's gonna be an in-house project, so we're gonna do that one. Just knock
Okay.
it out and be done with it.
And then is the truck that we're replacing, it's already a 350, right?
Yes.
Do we have any maintenance history on it?
We do, but it's not, it wouldn't be anything that would scare you off replacing it.
Okay. And then the last thing is what was did you get a price from JBI for the repair of that pump?
No, he didn't even give me a price.
Okay.
He told me they called MEC to see how much a new one would be, and he said they couldn't even,
Okay.
because it had actually blown a hole through the whole inside of the pump. So it was just, nothing could be done.
Oh, nothing could, it wasn't
Yeah.
repairable?
Yeah, he says unrepairable. The cost, it would just, you'd be buying a new pump through them is what it would be. So they didn't even give me a number.
Okay. So I've worked with too many servicemen for too many years that tell me that they know better how to spend my money than I do. At the end of the day, they should have quoted that.
Yeah. Well,
Because-
I guess it was just more than what the brand new one was going to be, as far as buying all the parts and the labor
Then
to put
quote
it all
it.
together.
Then quote it, okay? Demonstrate that, okay? Anyway, maybe he's right, and that's fine. Then just put the quote out there. I'm not against it by any means. It's more about the process and methodology, because I've had too many people tell me it's not repairable, and then I pull their service manager out onto the location and go, well, can you repair that? Yeah, I can repair it, but it doesn't make any sense. Oh, well, you don't have the same customers I do, okay? We can get into that some other time over a beer or something. That's all I have right now, thank you.
Okay.
Portion of the ambulance over to Chief.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. The first item on here is training and conferences. The increase is so we can send the supervisor and one of the staff members to the World EMS Conference, and then send the supervisor and 2 other employees to the Missouri EMS Conference. This is so they can, see what the emerging trends are, practices, protocols, equipment, all the new stuff that's coming down the pike for them. And also gives them their CEHs to keep up on their licensure. Professional services, this is our fees that we pay ARS, our billing service. They, after speaking with Carrie, and jump in if I start to say something wrong here, currently they get 6.5% of the revenue that's collected from our bills. So those, with our calls for service that have increased over the years and our billing prices, those numbers have went up. This year, this is really the first year I've been involved in figuring out this professional services number. Normally that's Gina or Carrie has been involved in that. So if we do go over budget, that also means that our revenue is increased, correct? Okay. So, any
So
questions?
basically, we're saying it's gonna cost us $5,500 more next year. And I'm sorry, I don't have the paper in front of me, like I would. What are we projecting the revenue to go up in the ambulance? What do we say the ambulance revenue is gonna go up?
3%, I think is
Yeah,
what.
I
I don't know what
estimated
that-
at 3%.
I guess it's offset, that's basically what I'm asking.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's all.
The next
Well,
slide.
since we're going to capital, I have a question on this one. So where is the World Conference?
Indianapolis. And we don't send it, that's a conference that we try to send our supervisor and a person, one of the other staff members to every other year. We don't. attend
So
that
how
one
long are
every
these conferences?
year. Close to a week,
Even the Missouri
4 or 5
conference?
days. Missouri conference is 4 days, I think.
Okay. $2,000 per conference seems high. I just wondered how we got to that, so.
I will say, Alderman Rucker, to address your concern, we offset and transfer significant money to the ambulance fund every year. So the $5,500, I'm estimating a $10,000 increase in revenue, but
Okay.
we're still going to have to transfer funds to make it break even.
So, small capital purchases, $7,500 to update ambulance, the tablet docking station and mounting hardware for the second truck.
Chief, I took that one off. It's less than 10, sorry.
Okay, sorry. And so we go to capital replacement request, $375,000 for a new ambulance. This is to replace Medic 8, which is our 2015, along with $22,000 in building renovations needed to accommodate the larger ambulance. Both of our bays downstairs are not the same size due to the locker room quarters. One of our bays is shorter than the other, so if we replace the ambulance with one identical to Medic 10, the one that we got 2 years ago, we'll need to make some renovations to the building. There is approximately a 24-month lead time on this, so we would not look at taking delivery of this ambulance till 2027, roughly.
Hey, Chief, then selling the other one, who does that?
April has been putting it on Purple Wave, the last ones that we've gotten rid of. And then the next item is $4,122 for our first in bags. That's, it carries all the equipment that the medics take in whenever they go into a call. We replaced those bags 7 or 8 years ago. They're worn out from the normal wear and tear being carried in and out the scenes and everything else.
Alderman Ross, did you have something?
I was just curious about the ambulance. First question, how many calls did it run last year or this year?
Roughly, I don't have that number exactly, but it was between 1,000 and 1,100.
The backup ambulance?
Oh, they run the ambulance on a month, off a month, so it runs 6 months worth of calls. So they alternate use. So they'll run keep the mileage, try to keep the mileage even, or even between the two trucks. We don't
So how many miles are on it, do you know?
Approximately 87,000.
Okay.
But what's gonna be on it in 2 years by the time we get rid of it?
And I'm confused how we actually budget that. I don't want to, for lack of a better term, commit $395,000 or $400,000 in this year's budget for something we know we're not going to spend on. So I'm not sure the best way to account for that, and that's what we have Carrie and April's and so forth. But anyway.
I had that same thought of how we would do that. I don't mean to interrupt your time, Richard, but since you mentioned it, I know we ought to make a commitment to order it because because you're 2 years out now on it, but we're not gonna spend that money. And maybe it's a combination of coal involved as well. Basically how, I'd like to see someone or another be able to commit the board in 2 years from now to spend that,
It should be a committed reserve.
some way or another without, I don't know.
And I would probably acquiesce to somebody else's opinion, but in my mind, that's a committed reserve. We have committed and uncommitted reserves, and I don't think that's the right word, but that's how it's laid out. But it should be a committed reserve if we choose to do so.
Any other questions?
Just one real quick. You said that some of the stuff is worn out in it, the bags and stuff?
No, that's not the ambulance. That's actual gear bags.
So you can buy that stuff and put it in there. It's not something that you can't replace until you get the new ambulance, right?
No, the bags we're wanting to replace in
Unfortunately, the line
25.
item is not on our.
Yeah, it's
Oh, okay,
again, it's
that's-
less than
A
10,000.
line item that we don't see up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was part of the
No,
ambulance.
it's another line item that's
Yeah,
not appeared on
I went
our.
off my note sheet.
Right.
Sorry, Devin.
No, you're
Shooting
good.
from the hip over there.
If it
Sorry,
was less
guys.
than 10,000, I took it off.
Okay.
That's all I have.
I'm concerned, just looking ahead, of once the Oasis gets open and more population, et cetera, the apartments become more active, of needing one other ambulance. You're alternating, you said, one month and one the other month.
Correct.
And I know I don't know, I'm looking at that as well as the police force. Just-
Right now, we
bring it
only,
up.
right now, Phyllis, we only operate one truck at a time.
Right.
So they use one truck 1 month.
Right,
The other one the
right.
next month. But
And then it's like 80,000 miles on each?
no, the new one, I'm not sure what the miles are.
Okay.
We're not quite, probably
I mean,
around 20,000.
80,000 doesn't seem much to me, but
Well, and we've got that study coming, and that's part of it is ambulance and police, that Bob put that in here, and I think that we're supporting it to have that study done. And that should tell us if we need another ambulance or not.
okay.
Ty, it's on you.
Good morning.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. This is basically the maintenance and support services for the OpenGov implementation that Zach has been using at Public Works this last year. They're looking to expand this to the airports, parks, and building department this year. So this is actually a new line item. That's why we had $0 for this fiscal year. We've already purchased the equipment for this, was basically comprises of a tablet. So that's already been purchased this year for the equipment. So this new line item is just for the maintenance and support services for that program. And ditto again for Grand Glaze, same thing, $2,000. And hope everybody's sitting down, but the airport is requesting a replacement fuel truck this year. Again. It's the current truck that I'd like to replace this year was the Avgas truck that's currently at Grand Glaze Airport. It's the oldest truck we have in the fleet right now. It's a 1985. I'd like to give you a good, mileage doesn't count for anything at the airport either, because it's kind of like Zach said, the truck just runs and idles a lot. But it did have 76,000 miles on it one time, and I think the odometer quit maybe 9 years ago.
Did you say 85?
Yeah, 1985, yeah. And that's all the exciting stuff I have this evening. If anybody has any questions.
Is there anything particularly wrong with it, Ty, other than the odometer?
No, it's still working. We've actually done a little more repair work on it this year. We've had to install new brake master cylinder and booster and installed a new clutch on it. But yeah, it still starts and runs, yeah.
Good, thanks.
If there's no more questions, that's the end of the enterprise funds, so we can move on to general fund. So first, we will go over revenue of the 1% sales tax. We are anticipating being about 2% over budget, what was proposed for this year, at the end of this year. So far this year, it's been $232,571 has been collected in marijuana tax, which is about 4.4% of our sales tax collections. So I am proposing a 2% increase for sales tax projections for revenue in next year. There's a chart showing the sales tax from 2019 to current. Orange is 2024. We are trending higher than most years currently. Moving on to franchise fees, we're on a downward.
Hang on,
Yeah.
didn't realize you were looking for
Nope, go ahead.
questions potentially, unless you want us to hold off to the
Nope,
end.
go
on
ahead.
revenue.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to understand this just a little bit. Is that 232,000, is that a forecast by the end of the year, or is that year to date?
No, that's year to date.
Okay, so it's gonna get a little higher.
It'll get a little higher, yeah. We're
Okay.
estimating the end of the year to be at 6.3 million, and right now we're at 5.3 million.
And I applaud the fact that you're being very conservative on the increase in budget growth, okay, or only 2%, because it may be because at the end of the year, the whole normal economy or the 12-month economy is bigger than it used to be, but the reports I'm getting about hotel rooms and things like that are not positive, especially the last half of the year. And my concern, and I'm trying to quantify this, is that we're asking for around we're expecting a 2% growth in revenue and a 10% growth in personnel. So there's going to come a day, probably on Monday or Tuesday, where all of these things that sound just great are going to have to be reckoned with from a bottom line standpoint. So it was interesting to see where that was all going to head.
I'm glad you brought that up, and I had thought about this over the last couple of days, and I just want to throw it out there because I've seen it happen before. But whenever you start giving premiums to lower level staff, you over time will start to see salary compression. So that is something that I would really like to stay away from. But
Well, if I could, all I can say is I'm not worried about salary compression. Others may be. Doesn't really bother me, because at the end of the day, in my mind, what we're trying to solve for is staffing and reduce turnover. And so there's going to be compression, all right? What I'm concerned about is what is called, and Carrie may be familiar with this, but the CAGR, or the compounded annual growth rate of how our personnel is going up, which I support, but I don't see so there's operations, maintenance, and capital, okay? And if salaries go up significantly more than your increase in revenue, okay, and you don't control in the middle or reduce capital, it's not going to balance, okay? So just a heads up.
so, I mean, at this point, I haven't done the numbers obviously yet, but at this point, I would say the capital will not go very far down the list because the personnel costs have grown substantially. Anybody else have any other questions about sales tax?
Well, the only thing is that's not our only source of revenue. Because there are other sources of revenue that we have to, that we have available to us that we have control over. So those are, and some of them we don't have control of. There's other sources of revenue to play into this. So it's
Right.
not just our sales tax.
Right. So the next is our franchise fees. They're on a downward trend, as you can see. So I am basically proposing a no net gain for a 25 proposed budget. Licenses and permits are steady, except for building permits, and those are hard to predict. So I put those off to the right to show you that they're all over the place. We're looking at projections of 300,000 this year, but that could very well not be near as much next year. So trying to be conservative. Again, you can't ballpark getting those kind of building permits if you don't see the development happening. Any questions on this slide? Okay. Next is our 0.5% transportation tax. I'm gonna, again, estimate a 2% increase for fiscal year 25. We actually saw a decrease last year in these taxes, both the transportation tax and the capital improvement tax. So we will basically be back to breaking even at the end of this year. So again, to be conservative, I am just implementing a 2% increase. Any questions on either of those taxes? Okay. Yeah.
Going back, Ron, what do we charge, I guess it depends, on building permits? I mean, obviously depends what they're building, I guess, but have we had a raise in those permits at all?
Can't answer that question. Without a microphone.
We have not. We have had permit studies, I'd say in the last 5 years, we've done it twice, just comparing ourselves to our neighbors and across the state. We've got another jurisdiction that I work with that he does the same thing. And again, it was with the Missouri Association of Building Code Administrators. They will send us a sheet to fill out saying, hey, if I have a $1 million commercial structure with this size meter, what's your permit cost? And if we have a residential structure with this valuation, what's your permit cost? And we have weighed those, again, locally, all the jurisdictions around the lake, as well as jurisdictions across the state. And we have found that we're in the middle. I think the last time we did that, I think you were requesting that information a year or two ago, 2 or 3 years ago. I can pull that information and send that to you if you like.
And the same for commercial?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yep.
I just wondered.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
But you also, we're talking about the rate. We're not talking about the permit, we're talking about the rate. And I do feel that we need to look at it, but you also have to understand how that works. The other side of the coin is the fact that you you apply for a $100,000 building permit, okay? And the rate to charge for that building permit is based on that $100,000 to build that, let's just say for the heck of it, 10,000 square foot building, okay? A couple years from now, you decide to build that same 10,000 square foot building. It's not going to cost $100,000 to build, it's going to cost $150,000 to build. We are still charging the same rate, but we're getting more money for the permit. Now, what's supposed to happen is the fact that the building cost goes up is supposed to take, and the permit fee goes up, is supposed to be able to keep up with the cost of what it provides that service by us. That's what's supposed to occur. That's perfect world, okay? And so that's how it's supposed to work. That's why adjusting rates on construction permit fees, I feel we need to do it. We need to keep an eye on it, but there's some, you got to understand that methodology. So, yeah, I do think we need to look at it, but it's supposed to keep up with itself. Am I right, Ron?
Yes, so just like you said, as the cost of construction rises, so will the cost of the permits and the revenue that we take in. Now, as far as how much of the cost of operating a building department you want to recoup, that is up to you guys. The International Code Council gives you a calculation. If you want to recoup 100%, then there's a calculation of what it costs to run your building department, and they go back the year prior. This is how much you did in construction, and we've found that that would be all over the board for this community. As you've seen before, we may do $70 million in construction one year and $300 million the next year. So it would put the permit prices outrageous on that third year, and we've already got people, you're going to have both ways, like, oh, it's cheap here, oh, it's expensive here. So far, staying in that mid-range has worked out for us, but again, that's your all's call.
Thank you.
Alderman Ross.
So I think we need to look at that again. I'm with Kevin. We are, in last year's budget, over the last 4 actual years, we've averaged around $120,000 in permit fees. Okay, that's nowhere close to what it takes to run the building department. Okay, especially when you start considering the fact that we have engineering inspections that are needed on top of that. And whenever I mentioned this a couple of meetings or 3 meetings ago, and I realized you guys are working on a lot of other things and they may take a little while, I think that there is a huge gap in what we're charging for permit fees compared to what we're expending for just basic inspections, based on just the general math. Keep playing with that.
Yeah, I don't want to have it on and hear all the rustling or make you guys listen to that. So as far as, watch it, Ty. So as far as and I haven't looked at this sheet, but 23 we collected, does that say 394,000 in building permits? And then the 97 in 20.
It's licenses too.
Well, except it pulls out just the building permits on the right-hand side in the parentheticals.
That doesn't match with the budget document that I have, I don't believe. Oh, I see, 108, right, so, okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and there's, yeah.
Goes back some.
And again, that does go back to you guys. If you want to collect more, that would be your direction, and I'll charge whatever you tell me to charge.
Well, I know we're not here to solve it, but I would say I understand that your ebb and flow around, but I think that you could probably look at a 5-year average of what your costs are for not only a 5-year average of what the permit fees were and a 5-year average of your inspection costs, and you could probably get pretty close to where you find the right middle.
Right, and that's assuming, and I'm assuming that you're talking about collecting 100% of what it costs to run the department. That's a decision that each jurisdiction makes. Most jurisdictions wouldn't want to recoup 100%. They just want to recoup it so much, and then the rest is a service to the community.
And that's fine. I don't know if it's 100% or what it is, but if this was the bill, keep in mind, and I realize you're trying to reduce those costs, Drew, okay? But this doesn't even include the engineering fees, the engineering inspection, or the inspections done by the engineering department, for lack of a better term, in the past, okay?
Yeah, and that would be a whole different department and different permitting,
Right.
structure.
And so, let's just say that we're at 80% or something like that right here, and I think we're more than that, to be quite honest, on a 5-year average of what our permits are. Then keep in mind, from a cost standpoint, compared to the revenue, I think that if we include the engineering, that we're probably at 120 to 140%, if I had to guess.
So Drew and Ron are working on that calculation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got the last 2 months tabulated. I've got the last 2 months tabulated and calculated for PEC, and the last month we had some consulting, sub-consulting as well. And mostly in design. I need to make sure that it was only in design. And I've got those numbers over to Ron, and then we just need to digest the rest of the last year or so, which is those invoices are large, and that's just for one consultant. So we work with, if you don't include the airports, because they're not really doing many projects for us for, construction inspection, we work with 5 different consulting firms for engineering and construction inspection. So it's.
Alderman Rucker.
I would just,
I'm
I would
digesting.
just say, my opinion, moving forward, I realize we have some different administration than we did a year ago, whatever, but I have always felt that what my suggestion would be is to, one of your goals at every year at budget is to look at all the fees. Every department look at all their fees, and what I don't want to see happen is, we already saw it, and we learned by hopefully our mistake, but we don't wait 5 years and then all of a sudden raise it up. I would much rather see, every year, a little bit of a few bucks, because let's face it, folks, every year we pay more salaries. Every year we pay more electric. Every year we pay more insurance. So why are we carrying those expenses, for that? So I think that just want to move forward. I think that's where we should be looking.
Yeah, good idea.
Agree, absolutely. Okay, moving on to reserve funds. Here's the general fund and transportation. April and I, during the break, she pulled the fixed assets, so we will get that compiled and over to you all for review. But again, we calculated it the same way. So a 3-year average for the personnel and O&M costs, and then a 3-year average of the capital depreciation. The percentage for these two funds is 25%. So you can see where we are sitting is significantly above what is needed according to the ordinance.
Say that one more time. We're doing what now? We're spending?
No, we have significantly more reserve than what we need according to the ordinance.
So for general fund, actually transportation is probably a better example. The 3.9 million reserve balance, how much of that is already committed?
None, right, Carrie?
Osage Beach Road.
In transportation.
Oh, this is the MoDOT. Yeah.
There's some.
Osage Beach Road,
that
I
should
would
be
think would be.
Didn't, you said it was around 2 million that MoDOT?
Oh, you're talking that original MoDOT, money that we received from MoDOT?
No, I'm talking about the fact that we're estimating a reserve balance at the end of the year of '24 of $3.9 million.
And you're
Are
asking.
we let me just ask the question this way. Are we expecting to pay all the money for Osage Beach Road by the end of the year?
No.
Okay, so given the fact that it was budgeted, wouldn't that money be part of this projected reserve?
We always have carryover. Those are accounted for in the budget estimates, and if they're not in the 24, then they're accounted for in your 25.
And the way that we've done that in the past is that there have been committed reserves or something to the effect, and
There was
uncommitted.
there
And
was a
so-
committed reserve for when we took over this parkway. And actually, I haven't seen Gina's calculation for how she.
Okay. I understand you guys may not know how Gina did it, but my concern is, and this is a watch out is all I'm trying to do, is that, yeah, we've got a great reserve balance. That's because we got several projects we haven't completed.
Right.
Okay, so that number looks wonderful, but if in fact we've got $1.2 million in Osage Beach Road and another project here, another project there, that number may not be, especially when it comes to the end of the parkway down here or whatever that we've done or not completed and won't get completed out by the end of the year, then that may not be near as bulky as it sounds like, because it's very easy to look at this number and go, oh my gosh, we can do a whole bunch of things next year in transportation because we got a whole bunch of extra money.
Looks
But-
like we got 3 million.
Not at all.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
And I don't think
not at all.
we do.
No.
Of that 3 million, some of it is committed, whether it's future parkway or projects, et cetera.
Sure.
Correct.
I think that's what, this isn't, I think there should be another column here. It should be that maybe that 3.9 million is what we have expected at the end of '24.
It could
But of that, there's a certain amount of that's already committed.
Should it say cash balance instead of reserve balance. Estimated cash
It's-
balance.
That's a cash balance, correct.
Yes.
That's not a reserve balance, that's a cash balance.
An uncommitted balance, yes,
And
absolutely.
then there's a certain amount of that 3.9 million, it is committed.
Yes, the difference is what
And
we're
then-
talking about, right?
Right. And that's what the extra is.
Yes. So you call it cash, you can call it uncommitted, I'm sorry, mind, Mr. Mayor. I
Go ahead, sir.
apologize.
Go ahead.
It's workshop, we can jump in.
Yeah, that's okay. It doesn't matter, but we need to understand that reserve balance as, okay, yeah, that's what we're projecting, but we also have commitments that we know are gonna happen next year.
Correct, yeah, this is the starting,
Okay.
what your starting cash balance would be.
The reserve balance, or total reserve needed, what you're saying there, that 927,000, if I understand it correctly, that's the amount of money that we ain't gonna touch. That's the amount of money that's gonna sit there in that fund all
Yes.
year.
That's
in
your
case
rainy
of-
day fund.
There you go. That's exactly what I was gonna say to you.
Yep.
That's the rainy day fund. Okay, so
Correct.
we're okay on that one, but so the remaining 300 million that's there is, some of that is not spendable, because some of it's already spent, or some of it is saying we need that in 2027, 28, 29, and that's, okay.
Correct.
Okay, all right. I'll run that page.
All right. Okay, again, across the board, same two things, property and liability insurance and postage costs have gone up. Does anybody have any questions or want to go over that again?
Is our postage going up to the community?
The postage cost from the post office has increased their
But are we
rates.
increasing ours for any mailings we have?
We charge them more for like planning and zoning, they pay for their postage out and stuff, but we don't charge for anything. There's no other charge to them.
No, but that is some of the hidden costs that goes in with all the fees, and
Yeah.
that's hard to
Yeah.
capture.
Okay. So we are actually to the portion that we were going to go over on Monday. Do you want to keep going for 30
Yes.
minutes? All right, that's great news.
I'm just one vote, but yes.
Y'all want to continue going?
I agree.
I'd like to point out we're not voting on anything
No.
today.
No.
No,
one
but
opinion, excuse me.
is there any objections to continuing?
Oh, let's go to 6.
As long as it's not more than 30, because my pain meds start to run out after that.
All right.
All right. We will, if we can get through at least part of this, we will not have to have a meeting on Tuesday.
There we go.
I can promise you that. All right. So the first one is the mayor and boards fund. The mayor had requested going to the National League of Cities. Would you like to speak to that?
Well, I didn't necessarily request it. When we were at MML, other mayors said they go to it, and I said, hey, let's look into it. And then Tara gave me the money, the budget for it, and I said, no, that's not worth it. There was a lot of benefits to that. I told her I wasn't looking for a vacation. It just looked like something that we could utilize. Mike Welty had said that it was beneficial. They had used some things from the national convention, but once I looked at the fee, I told her it was not necessary.
Not for this year, but I did budget it for next year if
Just
you'd like to go, so it's.
to look and
take it
consider,
out.
yes.
I did include membership though.
Yep.
So you guys can have membership to the National Leagues, you can get on and look at their stuff, so you can get on there. But again, we can take that all out. And I do think that it's important if you got in the National Leagues for membership, so
Yep.
you can see what the National Leagues do, just like, I'm on for international. Devin and April are on for international for, administrators and stuff like that. You get international for, building codes and stuff like that. So if you want to stay on for international, we can take out National Leagues, 4,700, that includes everybody that wants to go. I mean, it's up to whoever, if you guys don't want to take it out, that's fine. I did increase the travel, because we are going to St. Charles next year. So that's a little more expensive than Branson and Kansas City. I did increase your travel to there. But it's completely up to you if we want to take that additional 4,700 out.
And the way it was described to me was this is kind of like the MML conference on steroids, literally.
Right.
And it's, when you go to the national convention, that's where, like when you talk about visiting with other municipalities here in the state of Missouri, it's where you're nationwide.
Yeah,
And they have seen benefits to it. So it's certainly a board decision.
So so this is just Who's this to send? Just the mayor
No, this, you could send everybody, if anybody wanted to go.
for the national?
But that's not what we're budgeting for, are we?
Yes, for national. If you want to
Oh,
increase to, if
so
you want to increase it-
$4,700 is not for one person?
No, it's for all of you.
Oh, okay, well, that's a little
Because
bit
it'd be
different.
4,700, right.
For how, so you say all of us, so is that for 8? I mean,
I think it's just the mayor.
Okay.
It's
Well,
it was in
that's what I'm
Florida
saying.
this year.
This year was in
It
Florida.
was in Tampa.
It's
and-
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, and what you gave me was a fee of like 30 some,
No, it's for-
3,000
only for
some,
the mayor, right, only for the
and that's
mayor.
when I told her that was not
Right,
necessary.
Only for the mayor.
But the membership was for each of us.
But
Is
the
that what you're saying?
membership is for each of you.
Right.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm losing my
I think
mind.
the membership has some value. I can see there's some value in that.
But just to send the mayor to the national, but like I said, if you don't want to do that, it's something we can take out, or I can add everybody in for 4,700
Apiece.
apiece.
I will just speak from the fire service side, okay? I went to the Missouri Fire Chiefs Association every year. It was very valuable, very similar to the MML conceptually. I mean, the international, for the fire service was valuable because I, as the fire chief at the international, there was a lot of stuff. You know, there was some education, and there was a lot of that, but there was a lot of equipment and stuff like that. We, from the board standpoint, and I believe from the mayor's standpoint, that's not of value to us. You know, we have the staff that looks at all the widgets and all the stuff that needs to be bought, you know. So that's the one thing I see there. If we're gonna send anybody to that, it would be, you know, a staffer, and I would be concerned about that. I think that, you know, as Zach has indicated, you know, with certain areas of the water and sewer and those, they go to some of those places where they get a chance to hear about the new equipment and the new technology and some of those things. So, I would be concerned about that international one. It's gotten a lot more the international type conference, because I used to go to the international fire chiefs. That was not that wild of a cost. Unless there's a value that you see, and I guess in the past, didn't Gina go to that?
She went to, the national one for city administrators.
That's what she
Her
went to.
and Mike Welty did. They went to the national one for the city
For city
administrators.
administrators.
You could also do, maybe alternate. You could do the mayor and one alderman, and the next year do 2 other people, and maybe you can alternate it out if you want. I'm not seeing on here their next, I don't know where their next one's at, but it did come up to, maybe because it was short notice, because it was it's coming up in like November.
I think it's passed,
Let's
Yeah.
see when it was.
about now.
The city administrator one has
It's
it.
November 13th,
Oh, is it? Okay.
and it's in Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And this is, when it was discussed to me, I initially had told the city administrator, I said, I think this is something the 2 of us should go to. And she had a conflict, and I said, well, let's run the numbers for me to go. And when I saw the price tag, I said, no, let's not go. But other mayors had said, this is something we should go to. And quite frankly, if I needed vacation, I got it right here. I did not necessarily want to take 4 days to go down to Florida, but it was just something they thought was of value, so they put it on this budget to consider. Alderman Roush.
So I would just say that it's probably something we should try to do once, when the time's right, or you want a vacation, but that's not the
No, I
reason to go. I get that. But I think there may be some value in somebody checking it out and deciding whether or not it's worthwhile to continue.
Yeah, I would echo that and even lean more into it. I think I think you should go. And there's value in finding things outside of Missouri. You know, you might find one business contact there that wants to expand their business to, you know, Lake of the Ozarks, and they hadn't considered it. And just that one conversation opens a door. I think that price tag doesn't scare me for the possibility of what you can get back for it.
Well, on a personal note, just let me say this. When I do go to these conventions, I do go to most every seminar, even ones that I don't want to. And that's the way I was looking at it when other mayors said, you need to go to this. It is bringing knowledge back here to the state of Missouri. And so, Doesn't matter to me either way. Like I said, this is where I like to vacation right here.
It is not that type of a conference, Justin. It's not a type of conference where you come back and say, oh, I talked to, this restaurant franchise or this. That's not what it is.
You never know who you're going to meet.
That's true, but
And this is a high budget. I doubt if he'll spend the whole 4,700. This is fair. What I did is I took the high end of the airport, because you never know, the fees for flying and stuff like that. And so this is high. I doubt if he'll spend the 4,700.
Well, this is strictly a board decision. It will not upset me either way, but if I do go, I would at least make it worth my time, but.
When I do, maybe it is, we have a mayor that's going to be out there talking to people, and I just see a lot of value in that. You're good at that, and I think that we should utilize the opportunity to see what we get out of it.
Do we need to make a motion?
Nope.
Nope, just direction. I mean, yeah.
I would say, if it comes to anybody else, as much as I like to do this kind of education stuff, I don't think that's of value to an alderman.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay, we'll leave
To
it
an
in as
alderman.
it
I
is.
didn't say not to the mayor, I said to the alderman.
Gotcha.
So we'll leave it in there as it is. Next one is the collector. There was no change from the current budget other than the salary increase that you guys approved per ordinance. So there's nothing to go over there.
Wait, let's go back to that. Salary increase?
There was a,
No, that was the judge.
oh, I'm sorry. Wrong person.
Wrong one.
Wrong one.
Yeah,
Wrong
there's no
person,
salary.
not, sorry.
Okay, because
So there's no change.
I would like to discuss this a little bit, though. And we've talked about this. As you know, we attempted to put on the ballot last year to remove the collector, not remove, to make it an appointed position, because by state statute, we have to have a city collector. And it was made very clear that the collector, even though, for lack of a better word, we tried to get rid of him, not because we didn't like him, because most of the job is done through our city clerk. Got the most votes of anybody on the ballot. So we have a city collector. One thing that I discussed with Tara was, okay, well, and again, this is going to sound like I'm trying to get rid of somebody I don't like. Quite frankly, I have no problem with our city collector. But where the city is paying money to somebody that city staff does a job. Point being is, by statute, we have to have a city collector, and because of the ballot, he's going to be here. But nobody's discussed how much we have to pay him. So, since she does most of the job, do we want to consider how much we pay the city collector?
He gets $100 a month, and he gets 75 cents per license.
And what does the city collector do for that fee?
He, when I email the liquor license, he electronically signs his name.
Okay, anything else? So,
Well, I don't think it passed because I think we worded it poorly. People were confused. They thought we were adding a position.
well, I understand that. My point is we don't have to pay him what is currently being paid.
Is that not state mandated that we have to pay a certain amount? No?
No. So if she's
You can
doing,
volunteer if you want.
if she's doing 90% of the job, I think 90% of the money should stay here, is my point.
So if we lower it low enough, nobody wants the job?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it is what it is, but we don't have to pay what we currently pay when she does most of the job. Alderman Rucker.
I think the first step we need to do is we need to go back and read the ordinance. I have that on my desk that I was going to work on it at some point in time, because my suggestion to myself was, okay, there's some responsibilities there in our ordinance that we're not asking that person to do. So that's the first thing. So we can't fault that person for not doing what they're supposed to, because we're not asking them to do it. Secondly, we need to make sure we understand the ordinance. And last, I didn't think they had I thought they were only paid so much per license. Again, going back to the ordinance. I'm just going off the top of my head. So I could be totally wrong with that, okay? I'm not calling anybody out on that. So I hear what the mayor's saying, but I think square one on this, we need to go back to square one to what was originally voted for and go, and again, I go back to some discussion I had. The original language in the original ballot is what we're paying him by. And I don't know that we can change that.
And you think the ordinance writes that out? How much?
Well, my discussion with prior council was the fact that was a ballot language. Okay? Different council, different thought, different, okay? So I'm just trying to say, if we want to go down that road, I'm okay, but we need to do a little more research to see.
No, I agree. And we can take a look at the ordinance and, yeah, but if the ordinance doesn't say how much, then.
It does.
Yeah, it does, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not finding that.
And that's
in
not saying we
here at
can't
all.
change the ordinance unless, because of the way it was originally written on the ballot, some things, we can't change ordinances if the ballot says this is the way we got to do it.
No, and I agree. I guess what I'm trying to say, and not that it's a huge amount, by the same token, you should pay the person that's doing the job. And so whether it's having her not do it and having that person do it or vice versa, but.
I just think we have to do.
No, I agree.
I'm not disagreeing with saying that, but
I
I'm
agree.
just bringing out what the research is that we need to do to.
Perfect, yep. Alderman Ross.
I just think that we should put on every ballot, every year, to eliminate the collector's position, because sooner or later, everybody's gonna understand what we're asking for, and they'll get the fact that we're paying for limited to no value.
Agreed.
Very good. But for the time being, we're going to check on ordinance, correct?
And if you can pay him less, other than, I don't know that paying him or her less in the middle of their term is a good idea, but, I mean, just from an integrity standpoint or ethical or whatever you want to call it, but is what it is.
Okay.
From what I can see in the code, it is not called out for anything on salary.
Let me look at
It
the
gives,
ballot question.
okay.
Let me find the
Okay.
ballot question. That may have.
Well, that
just
doesn't need
because
to be
it's not in
decided
there.
now, but,
Right.
yeah, okay.
Okay. Moving along. Okay, city administrator, budget, hold on, let me get this pulled up on my side. Increasing training and conferences by $1,000. I want to be able to maintain my CBO, and April would like to obtain, what is your certification called?
CPFO, Certified Public Financial Officer.
Through GFOA, so that has increased. Now that we have a public information officer, she had 2 requests, she's gone, but she wanted a social media manager and a Meta Verified accounts, which she worked with Mr. Bean on, so that's a $700 request. We also.
Well, I'm sorry, what manager? I didn't hear what you said.
A social media manager to help her with her posts on social media and to get things broadcasted across all of our social media, so Instagram and Facebook and all of that.
So it's an app or some sort of, it's not another person?
Maybe Michael Bean can explain it better than I can.
I believe so. What she explained to me is it just helps her better centralize the oversight of all the different social media apps that she's utilizing.
It's not personnel, it's some
No.
sort of computer thing.
That is correct.
In my language, computer thing. yeah.
You get on there and it breaks out all of your different social media platforms and it shows you the analytics
Oh, yeah.
into
Okay.
each one of them. So it's a very handy tool.
And it would be beneficial in some of the changes that we've had with personnel. We've kind of been through the ringer trying to figure out all the different pieces. Kind of centralizing that would be beneficial.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay. The next thing, and I'll address this now, we have decided to absorb the 1013 overhead account into the various departments that they actually belong to. When I got here, I thought this was a very strange account to have. So we have absorbed the citizen survey portion of that account into administration. So we have that in there now. Mobile devices for myself and April and Jamie to have cell phones, so that went up a little bit. Postage, again, we absorbed the postage that was identified in the 1013 account. And then there was a contingency amount in 1013 of $200, so we absorbed that into admin as well. Anybody have any questions on that budget? Yes.
So when you say, first of all, the citizen survey, I'm assuming that was to do some citizen survey?
Yeah, that was what she budgeted, Gina
It was budgeted to do a survey, okay?
Yeah.
Right, so when you say you absorbed it, does that mean it got moved over?
Yeah, so it was in 1013 in the overhead fund. I'm not sure why. So I moved it over to the admin fund.
So 1013 fund's going to be,
Will go away.
will go away.
Yep.
Okay.
And it was how much?
The citizen survey was, I think it was 12,000.
Okay, I guess that'll pay for a mayor's trip if he decides to go. Mobile- Mobile devices and service, are we having to purchase new cell phones? For it to go up 50% seems odd.
No, that would probably be because the PIO didn't have their cell phone
But
included.
they don't have one now?
She does have one now, but the previous budget did not have that position included, so it's
Right.
a new line for that position.
From what I could tell, Gina had done a amendment of some sort to add the PIO or communication specialist money somewhere in the middle of the year last year. So it was not in the original budget at all.
All right, that's all I have, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions on our budget? Okay. Tara.
So I never had a cell phone, so now I have a cell phone. Paid my $600. Pretty much it. With my new office, I absorbed all of overhead's office supplies. I do all the ordering for all the paper and everything, so I absorbed all of office supplies. So I took over all overhead out of there, so I went from 14 to 4,000. Any questions? Yes.
Do you not need one for the assistant when she's hired? Or
No.
he or she?
No.
No? Okay.
No, we don't need one. Yes,
Do you want a cell phone?
yes.
Why do you need one?
Well, because I keep getting personal calls on my personal cell phone, so I'm gonna get one. And then when we had the incident and all that, it was just easier to call and make all of that. And I just don't want my personal cell phone to get sunshine requested ever.
I think she meant work calls on her personal phone.
Yeah.
So
And I get
why
emails.
why do people have access to your cell number other than your supervisor?
Because they do. I get phone calls from
Well,
aldermen,
that-
and the mayor.
I
If I'm
mean,
special,
That's
they
right.
love me.
I called her to figure out where the hotel was on the way up to MML.
Well, when we're traveling, I can understand that just a little bit, but
Yeah.
but I didn't call Tara on her cell, I called Devin. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have one necessarily. If you didn't want one, then I was gonna,
Yeah, no.
I don't know that you want one, but try it and see. Got nothing else, thank you.
I'm good.
More important is your personal phone doesn't need to be sunshineable.
Yeah, that's my main one.
Don't take calls on that.
That's very important.
And I like talking to you guys. And my next one, my small request is I need a chair for my deputy and a scanner at her desk. Or his desk. That's it. Thank you.
Carrie Bell.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 13 pieces that my department's absorbing. Credit card fees,
I'm sorry, hello. Professional services, postage, equipment, lease rental, and financial services, which I think the bulk of that has to do with probably the audit. So that makes sense, moving it to my department. Unless you have questions, it's pretty much the same.
Any
Well,
questions?
if I understand what we've been doing here, you didn't explain it this way, Devin, and you're only presenting the changes from the '24 budget.
Correct,
Okay?
significant
And the only
O&M
reason
changes.
some of these items are on here, like the $40,000 that we have here for financial services, is because it's not a change from '24, but it's a change to the treasurer's budget because it's coming from the 1013.
That's correct,
Okay, I understand. Just didn't
yes.
wrap my head around that.
Any other questions for city treasurer's account? Municipal court, this is the one that has no change except for the increase in the judge's salary that was approved by ordinance. Cole's budget had no significant changes at all. The only thing that he did want me to mention is that he does have a fund in there. I don't remember exactly what he calls it, but it's kind of a backup fund in case he needs to
ACD's a hire.
hire out.
Other council.
So we are keeping that the same, just in case there is some situation that he needs to, it's professional services. So we're keeping that at the same amount that's just in case something were to happen.
Couple high-profile cases going on
Right.
at the same time that he needs somebody else to jump into.
Correct. All right, Ron.
I'm sorry, I didn't prepare for this. I was told that I wouldn't be on until.
Don't ruin
Monday.
the momentum.
I think I can explain these, though. So 2024, the Lake area, all the code officials will be proposing to their respective jurisdictions the adoption of the 2024 codes. The codes are cycled every 3 years, but we try not to cause mass confusion. So we do every 6 years as a lake area. The books and subscriptions, as you can see, that goes up quite a bit for fiscal year 25 because that will be, and it's actually less than what we used to spend during the code cycles because we are purchasing 3 licenses for electronic copies of all the codes, and then by ordinance, I'm required to have 1 copy of each code maintained in the city clerk's office.
So I get confused with all the letters. Isn't there an IBC code also? Am I confused?
Yeah, so the ICC codes, that's everything that's produced by the International Code Council, which is the building code, mechanical, electrical, or building, plumbing, mechanical, fire code, fuel gas code. This includes all of them.
All of it.
Yes, sir.
What's the probability the rest of the area is going to adopt these in your mind?
Very high.
And is Camden
I'm sorry, what was the
County?
question?
No, not Camden County. So Mid-County Fire Protection District, Osage Beach Fire Protection District, Camdenton, Lake Ozark, Sunrise Beach Fire Protection District. We have monthly meetings. All of the code officials get together, and then we actually sit down and go through the codes during special meetings to decide what amendments that each jurisdiction might make.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And right now, just one more point, when COVID came along, a couple of the jurisdictions, maybe Rocky Mountain, Mid-County, did not update to the newer codes. So this will actually bring everybody to the 24. This is the OpenGov implementation for City Hall, building maintenance. And this is the training that we're going through now and what we were talking about as far as asset life. The biggest thing that's going to help me is just that. For me, it's the 49 air handlers, heat exchangers that are above the ceilings in this building and tracking their age and what kind of lifespan we have left in them. I also want to track how much we're spending on each unit so that I know, is it time to sacrifice the unit and buy something new, or are we still okay to repair? Yes, sir.
So would this also allow us to, for the customers, these folks out here, especially the ones in this building, to, if they need X from Doug, that they put the work order in that way?
Yes, I'm very new to this. I just started a couple weeks ago with my first class.
Well, and I'm all
Yeah.
for this.
Okay.
Just keep in mind your customers won't care for it if you try to implement that, but it's the best thing to do.
Okay.
So the next account is for parks, which is not here, and we are 5 minutes shy.
Perfect.
So we are halfway through general fund, so Monday, we should finish this up.
Will everybody be here Monday that's here?
No, I won't be.
You won't be? Yeah, you will. All right. Anybody else have any comments or questions before we ask for a motion to adjourn?
So we're stopping it before we go into parks, is that what I
Yep.
understand?
Yep.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Do we have a second? Hoffman, all those in favor? Aye. All right, meeting's adjourned.
See, just as soon as I